Hello everyone, and welcome to the world of Trench Crusade. This absolute monster of a video is a compilation of all my previous videos exploring the world of Trench Crusade. This video is for those who are new to Trench Crusade or wish to refresh their knowledge on the fascinating lore of this game. So without further ado, let the video begin. The year is 1099, and on the eve of the First Crusade, victory is at hand. The Crusaders have liberated Jerusalem in the name of their God. The church bells ring, and jubilation is heard through the streets. Little do these celebrants know, something much darker and much more infernal is about to be unleashed. War that would make even the Great Crusade pale in comparison. As the crowds cheer, a group of Templar find an ancient evil, and overcome by their greed and lust for power, they're about to unleash the greatest threat humanity has ever faced. Welcome to Trench Crusade. Trench Crusade is a tabletop game much along the lines of Warhammer. It is based in an alternate timeline of the Great War. In 1914, a world war is raging, though it's not the one we are familiar with. This war is not that of man versus man. This is a war between the faithful of heaven and those from the fiery pits of hell itself. This is a war for mankind, and in this dark world, the Church and hellish servants battle for dominance in the trench warfare of the early 20th century. The world of Trench Crusade is steeped in lore, and that's what I'll be covering today. This is only the beginning of a series on Trench Crusade, and is intended as a starting point for you to familiarise yourself with the setting and history of this world. This video will only be a broad overview of the key points and factions that exist in the world of Trench Crusade. So, without further ado, let's dive into the history of the Great Crusade. The world and history of Trench Crusade follows our own until the year 1099 and the end of the First Crusade. The First Crusade was started in 1096 and concluded with the taking of Jerusalem in 1099. It was a war waged by the European Christian nations against the Muslim forces that lived there. In our world, when Jerusalem fell, the Crusade ended, and the Crusader kingdoms were established. However, in this alternate history, a change to the timeline occurred. Following the conquest of the Holy City, a group of Templar found in the bowels of the city an unholy artifact. This group of Templars strayed from their path and began to worship the relic, following the commands of the demons inside. They performed cursed rituals and demonic acts. This was known as the Act of the First Heresy. Shortly after, an event known as the Ultimate Heresy is committed. This opens the very gates of hell itself in the Holy City, destroying it. This forces the Crusaders to retreat from the city, and Jerusalem became a depraved pit, where hell and our mortal plane now bled into one. 3 years later, in 1101, the Year of Three Battles took place. This event was fought between the Crusaders and Heretics, humans who were now loyal to the forces of hell, and reinforcements from the Third Circle. These battles resulted in the retreat of the Church forces and the conquest of the Levant, modern-day Israel, Palestine, Syria, Lebanon and Jordan, by the hellish armies. As a result, the ancient city of Antioch was fortified and became the focal point of resistance against the forces of hell. 8 years later, in 1109, as the forces of hell encroached on Muslim territories to the east, the Divine intervened. The Great Iron Wall of Iskandar emerged, materializing to stop the heretic forces. This was followed by the establishment of the Great Sultanate of the Invincible Iron Wall of the Two Horns that Pierced the Sky. This will be called the Iron Sultanate for my sanity. In the coming decades, it unifies the Islamic nations. 8 years later, in the year 1117, the legendary 17 martyrs travelled to the earthly domains of hell to convert the heretics. Captured, tortured, and kept in a perpetual state of agony, they remain trapped within white-hot brazen bulls to this day. This spurred a push in the faithful forces to help these martyrs. In the east, in 1165, the Old Man in the Mountain and his Hashashins defend the mountain fortress of Alamut. This castle stands to this very day, despite being besieged for hundreds of years. Between the years 1215 and 1306, a major string of wars known as the Wars of Triclavianism split the Church. Infighting occurs for nearly a century, and not much is known about these wars, but their weakening of the Church allowed for the heretic forces to expand their domain. Between the years 1346 and 1353, Beelzebub, one of the key archdemons of hell, released his demonic weapon known as the Black Grail. This infects the faithful and turns them into accursed reanimated forces, fighting for their lords and the Lord of Flies. The timeline follows that of the Black Death in our timeline, but unlike the Black Death, this leads to the events known as the Corpse Wars. These wars raged until the living saint, Joan of Arc, drove the Black Grail from mainland Europe in the year 1429. A major development occurs in 1503 when war prophet Angelos, guided by Saint Eligius, discovers the formula for orichalcum steel. Though extremely costly to produce, the metal proves to be effective against all missile weapons and is still used to this day. This steel powers the faithful forces, helping them combat the Heretic Legions far more effectively. 40 years later, the great fortress city of Antioch was destroyed utterly by means of an infernal device in the year 1545. This was a major blow to the faithful forces. However, they vowed to restore Antioch to its former glory. This would be the new stronghold of the faithful forces, and would be even greater than the last. New Antioch was completed in the year 1595, 50 years after the desolation of the original. In the year 1666, the Heretic Fleet, a demonic navy, built in secret, in a surprise raid and captured Gibraltar. This becomes the headquarters of the Heretic Fleet and Heretic Army against the European forces. In response to the Heretic Fleet gaining access to the Atlantic, the Crown of England begins the construction of the fortress walls of the White Cliffs. Over the next 2 centuries, the Heretic Legion gains ground in the Middle East, and the Heretic Navy plagues the coasts of Europe. This comes along with technological advancement, and victories of the Heretic Fleet against the British Navy. By the year 1866, in the utmost secrecy, Heretic scientists, aided by the demon Marbus, construct the first modern submarines. And in 1870, the Heretic submarine fleet launched from Gibraltar, extracting a heavy toll and causing widespread famine in Europe. With this success, in 1872, the city of Rijeka is sieged and taken. It is fortified and Heretic conquest is launched against the European mainland. This would lead to the Year of the Broken Trinity in 1894. The Death Commandos, a new and deadly force of the Heretics, simultaneously assassinated the Supreme Pontiff, the High Prophetess Aelia, and the Holy Roman Emperor. The faithful are thrown into turmoil. The Heretic Legions, commanded by Hell's nobles of the Seventh Circle, and a huge vanguard of tanks launch in simultaneous lightning offensives in the Levant and Europe. However, the Church and the faithful would regain land with successes such as the Church Space Program of 1899 and the completion of the moving Fortress of Britannia in 1907. They fought the Heretics to a stalemate in the Battle of Cordoba, where despite heavy artillery from the Heretic forces devastating the city, they failed to get access to the heartlands of Hispania. And this leads us to the present day, the year of our Lord 1914. Both sides are preparing for major offensive operations. In the huge swaths of no man's land, furious skirmishes and raids increase in intensity as the faithful and heretics vie for information, powerful relics, and securing strategically important positions. This is the world you find yourself in, the world of Trench Crusade. Now, you must sally out and face the forces of hell as a faithful soldier of God, or do your Dark Lord's evil bidding as a heretic. But first, you must decide who you will fight for. Firstly, the strongest faction of the faithful forces, the last bastion in the hellish plains on earth, the Principality of New Antioch. In the year of our Lord 1545, a tragedy occurred unlike any the world had ever faced before. The final bastion of the holy city of Antioch was destroyed by an infernal device. The last hope for faithful power in the Levant had fallen. It seemed the hellish armies had struck a killing blow. But this would not be the end for the faithful. No, this was only the beginning. And welcome to the faction of New Antioch. If you have watched my video on the overall world and history of Trench Crusade, you know a bit about the factions already. As I said in that video, that was only a taster. In this one, we will be taking a greater look at the strongest faction of the faithful forces, the bastions against the heretics and the hellish, the Principality of New Antioch. After the devastation of the original city of Antioch, it seemed all hope for resistance in the Middle East was lost to the faithful forces. But the faithful saw the importance of the Home of Hopes. The faithful never gave up their positions in the ruins. Despite the fact the city had been all but annihilated, the warriors of Antioch fought on in the rubble, pushing heretics back time and time again. Despite the overwhelming forces facing them, and the demonic essence emanating from the pit the demonic device had left, the warriors held their ground. Even as mighty Constantinople was overrun by the damned legion of Chimerus, Marquis of Hell, the garrison of Antioch remained resolute in their defence. The city of Antioch was always the first line of defence and the last bastion of the faithful strength in the Levant. Since the year of 3 battles 4 centuries before, it had withstood the wrath of the devil's servants. It was the symbol of divine strength against those who wished to throw the world into darkness. This symbol could not fall, and with the heretics' advancement into the Balkans after the fall of Byzantium, a decision had to be made by the faithful forces. This led to a decision that would change the world and set in motion the events that would affect the very foundations of history, the Sword Congress of Vienna. In the year of 1559, the Sword Congress of Vienna took place. This was the meeting that decided the fate of Antioch. Since the heretics were pushing into the Balkans further and further, they had to make a decision to send reinforcements to the front there, or whether resources would be better used to help the fighters that still held out in the ruins of Antioch. Not only were they impressed by the resilience and fortitude shown of the Antioch garrison, but it was also a key stronghold, the last inside the Levant. However, the real reason they decided to put their faith in Antioch was its symbolic meaning. A city that, even when pushed to the brink, even after annihilation, never bent its knee to the forces of hell. Thus, it is no wonder that in the year 1559, the Sword Congress of Vienna agreed to rebuild and fortify the city. This was a colossal effort and involved countless workers, engineers, and supplies from Europa, the Mediterranean, and African dominions, as well as endless reinforcements to hold the line as Antioch was rebuilt. For decades, thousands fought and died to hold back the tides of demons and heretics with the hope of saving Antioch and establishing a new stronghold for the faithful. And 5 decades after the destruction of Antioch, in the year 1595, construction of the walls was finished and the fortress city of New Antioch was completed. This was the strongest fortress city ever built, and to this day it remains the key front and most important faction for the faithful forces. As was decreed in the Sword Congress of Vienna, a yearly tithe is sent to the Principality of New Antioch from every faithful nation to assist the stronghold in its mission to drive off the heretic forces. This tithe, however, does not come in the form of coin. No, the tithe to New Antioch is paid in a near endless stream of food supplies, ammunition, tools, weaponry, machinery, skilled workforce, labour, and engineers to maintain the city's defence. For centuries, the city has maintained its power despite the best efforts of the hellish armies. Even when the great heretic fleet was unleashed in the year 1666, beggaring their port and capturing Gibraltar and cutting off supplies to the city, they held strong. As they perished from the plagues of the Black Grail, they held strong. As the secret weapons of heretic submarines destroyed their supplies and thousands starved, New Antioch held strong. Since those dark days, New Antioch has grown and has become undoubtedly the most important and most critical fortress city of the faithful forces, the sword and shield of Europa and Africa, the defender of the faithful and the weapon of the divine. They hold, fight, and die for their God and to push back the darkness of hell. This is with the unanimous agreement of the faithful nations, as they see it, the princes of the church and leaders of various dominions who oppose hell, it is better to fight the heretics away from their heartlands. This way, they don't suffer the brunt of the hellish army's focus, allowing them to maintain the front lines as the armies of New Antioch take on the brunt of the heretics' offensives. To this day, the walls of New Antioch have cast off the attacks of 8 great sieges. This was due to the might of their walls. the walls of New Antioch are impervious to most damage the demonic forces can throw at it. Marking these walls are 77 great towers. The great towers of New Antioch have never been breached, due to the hundreds of Anchorites, giant metal battle shrines with devoted worshippers entombed inside. These shrine Anchorites keep watch over the walls of Antioch, and staying vigilant day and night to guard the city from any who intend to harm it. Despite these formidable Anchorites and impenetrable walls, it would not be able to withstand the forces of Gehenna if it were not for the volunteers who come to fight under the banner of Christ. These soldiers from across the world arm themselves and come to lay down their lives in the fight against the unholy. Thousands march into the endless war of no man's land to become the next martyr or hero in the fight to keep the Principality alive. Thus, in the streets, hundreds of languages are spoken, and cultures mix and meet in the markets and squares. One might observe hussars from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth brushing shoulders with the last remembrance of the Varangian Guard, or hear the sermons of a street preacher from Era extolling soldiery of Ethiopia to lay down their lives for the cause. The city is a melting pot of cultural ideas and inventions. This has led to new centres of innovation and technologies to fight the forces of hell. You may see church engineers taking their latest invention to be tested on the front lines. This all happens under the watchful eyes of the Office of Propagation of Virtue that tirelessly patrol the streets. These are the secret police of the city, rooting out heretics and making sure that the rules of the city were kept, even in its darkest corners. While they are quite happy to turn a blind eye to the revelries of soldiers, they ferociously prosecute even the slightest deviation from church doctrine. The execution of heretics is a weekly spectacle that draws immense crowds. The war effort of New Antioch does not rely on the tithe given by the faithful forces alone. The Principality is home to an immense industry. It has become a major industrial force, with factories spewing smoke as they produce immense numbers of tanks and trucks for the war effort to hold the heretics at bay. While the great foundries of New Antioch burn white hot for days on end as they produce weaponry and equipment essential to maintaining of the walls and the artillery battalions, the pride of New Antioch. The industrial power allows for New Antioch to suffer the necessary losses the Great War demands and still push on to combat the hellish powers. There are many secrets held within the depths of the great city, some more dark than they appear. The techno laboratories of New Antioch hold countless experiments with twisted results and gruesome tests. They push the boundaries of what a human can be in attempts to produce communicants. Communicants are the living embodiment of the war of creation. These are amplified humans, more than just the common man. They are metahumans who have gained special supernatural and spiritual powers from the flesh and blood of the Redeemer himself. These superhuman communicants allow the forces of the faithful to match the twisted abominations that arise from Gehenna. Thousands of workers give their lives in horrific accidents and overwork each year, and great statues celebrating their sacrifice stand around the city to remind the faithful of the cost of the war against hell. Despite all these preparations, it is a grim reality that New Antioch could never withstand the full onslaught of the combined heretic forces. Despite its help from each faithful nation, and no matter how many volunteers answer the call, the forces of hell will always outnumber the faithful. As unlike them, when a heretic dies, another will take his place. And unlike the faithful, the demons from hell have the infernal devices and darkest of magic to push the faithful back. With the countless demonic reinforcements that spew from the Hellgate, it would not be long before the Principality fell. However, the Bastion maintains its position in major part thanks to the constant infighting within the forces of hell. The ferocious and bloody internal conflict amongst the devils allows the Principality to stand to this day. The archdevils of the court of hell are always playing in bids to increase their demonic powers, rising and falling in a constant battle for dominance. the demons leading the heretic forces can never dedicate their full power to eliminate the Principality, and only rarely does one of them gain supremacy for long enough to mount a full-scale invasion, as this has only ever happened 8 times in the centuries the Principality has stayed strong. Even though the war has stretched for centuries, with decades of nervous lull between great battles, the rulers of Hell are immortal, and, to them, the war has barely even started. They are beings that have existed before there was time, and wish to savour the agony of the mortals who die in their millions, and thus the Great War rages on, sometimes with long years of silence followed by sudden, ferocious assaults. At any moment, the forces of Hell could shift, with a new archdemon gaining power. This means New Antioch must always be on the defensive against the heretic forces, always on guard against the attacks that could be launched at any moment. For this reason, the control of the faithful military lies at the highest rank to the Duke of Antioch. As the nominal leader of all faithful forces, the Duke of New Antioch has the power to command all the troops that fight in this front. The Duke must remain vigilant at all times, organising the supplies and strategies of the front to portray a sense of unity and strength between the faithful forces. But, despite swearing fealty to the Duke, in reality, troops who come to the battle against Hell from across all of Christendom operate in units of their own, taking commands from their own leaders. The majority always keep their loyalty to their original countries and cultures and simply use the front of Principality to strike back against the heretics. Though there is no small number of faithful who renounce their original citizenship to take up the cross and walk in the path of faith, to fight loyally for Christendom and to fight under Duke Constantine directly. These have become the backbone of New Antioch's forces, and some of the most elite fighters in all the faithful. Thus, the standing army of the Principality is the greatest single fighting force the faithful can muster, and those who serve on the walls of the Home of Hopes are rightfully proud of their livery. There are many units and key fighters in the armies of New Antioch, but the ground forces, the yeomen, keep the front lines. These are the average foot soldiers of New Antioch. They are the core of the faithful forces. Trained and well equipped, they represent the strength and the Principality, and each swear a personal oath to the Duke and are devoted to the defence and mission of New Antioch. What they lack in combat skills, they are more than make up for with their numbers and wide selections of weapons. Shock troopers are assault troops that specialise in attacking enemy defensive positions. They are masters of rapid assaults and melee combat, and are experts at combined arms and fireteam tactics. They are the second most common troops in the armies of the Principality, and reinforce the yeomen on assault missions. They are used to conduct precision strikes, eliminating targets and capturing key locations. They are the blades of the Home of Hopes. Combat engineers specialise in destroying bunkers, discovering minefields, and building battlefield emplacements. They are well trained and are used to great effect in mixed warbands. They are strong fighters and are equipped with thick steel armour that can stop pistol and even rifle rounds. Despite the high number of casualties in such units, these soldiers consider it an honour to fight and die for New Antioch and the Church. They are heavily specialised and take years to train. They are not a resource used lightly, and are deployed in warbands to assist in assaults or defences to secure objectives at any cost. The heavy mechanised infantry are a cornerstone of the New Antioch forces. They are elite warriors chosen from the orphanages to be blessed with the metal armour of the mechanised infantry. This comes at a cost, however. Once chosen, they are brought through a special process where they are heavily augmented by chemicals and secretive techniques to improve their size, strength, and mental fortitude. Each set of armour is handcrafted, and in the eyes of New Antioch, more valuable than the soldiers inside. Mechanised heavy infantry are charged with wielding the heavy weaponry of the company. They are the armoured elite, able to press the attack under heavy fire. They are the bulwark of the Principality. The Sisters of St. Cosmas, also known as combat medics, are a highly trained, elite medical corps who specialize in battlefield first aid and surgeries on the front lines. The sisters take a modified Hippocratic oath that compels them to help any wounded soldiers of the faith, no matter how dire the circumstances are, as well as dispatching heretics and other enemies they find in the battlefield, without pity or mercy. Armed with a combat surgical knife that doubles as a misericordia, they are so equally adept at saving lives as taking them from those they find lying wounded in no man's land. They carry medical kits with a plethora of battlefield drugs that are especially useful for nullifying the pain of even the ghastliest wounds and getting soldiers back on their feet and back into the fray, even if just for a few moments, so they can accomplish their mission or die trying. Lieutenants are the leaders of the war bands. They are tasked with upholding the unity and perseverance of the front lines. They display unwavering loyalty to the Duke and the Principality. There are several ways to become a lieutenant, but the most common is that of a favoured noble's son or daughter, or a particularly impressive soldier who gained their rank by impressing their superiors with their exceptional strategic acumen and audacious bravery. They are in charge of keeping supplies for their troops, which often means scavenging the battlefield for fresh ammunition and rations. They are the first level of leadership and logistics of the Principality. Trench clerics are holy warriors who look after the souls of the soldiers in their company. Trench clerics chant inspiring battle prayers and can perform various miracles, such as healing or even smiting the enemy. A cleric often carries a portable shrine on his back to denote his faith in the company's patron, be that one of the saints of their homeland, a mighty archangel, or the Lord himself. Sniper priests, being devotees of the church, blind themselves ritually as devotion to God and use only their faith to strike the enemies of the church. They are a living sign of God's divine will on the battlefield, as they are guided by his will. They are a source of morale, an unparalleled skill when in the fight. They see with the eyes of God. Their aim will always strike true, if God wills it. The majority of New Antioch's armies and warbands consist of these troops. However, they are not all the Principality has to offer to the faithful war effort. Despite the effectiveness and elite manner of troops they have to rely on, there are some situations these troops simply cannot overcome. In times of great threat, such as the great sieges or an immense attack from the heretical forces, there are other weapons the Principality can call on. Elite troops that fight with the word of God in their very head and seeing through his divine eyes. These are the Observers. Among the Faithful's elite forces in the Trench Crusade are the Observers of the Synod of Strategic Prophecy. These warrior monks live lives of absolute solitude and discipline, dedicating themselves to sharpening their minds and bodies into unparalleled instruments of divine will. Their role in the battlefield is crucial yet highly specialized, with their unique abilities enabling them to shift the tide of battles in the favor of the faithful. Observers live their lives within the Temple of the Word, a secluded monastery where even the slightest disturbance could compromise their training. Their days are divided between intense physical regiments, mental exercises, and spiritual communions with the divine. This rigorous lifestyle ensures that they remain entirely focused on their sacred mission, to serve as living weapons in the hand of God. Only when the need is dire does the Synod of Strategic Prophecy summon an observer to the battlefield. Their arrival is a harbinger of decisive action, as their abilities make them invaluable in critical moments of the Great War. Central to the Observer's power is their specially crafted Oculus helmet. This artifact allows them to attune the voice of God, granting them the ability to perceive the immediate past, present, and future simultaneously to a degree. This divine insight enables them to execute extraordinary martial feats, from evading enemy strikes with perfect timing to anticipating their enemies' moves. However, this gift comes at a steep cost. The voice of God resonates endlessly within their minds, filling them with an overwhelming narrative spanning from creation to the present. Concentrating on the specific guidance they need requires superhuman focus, and the constant presence of the voice renders sleep impossible. Observers must rely on potent sedatives and mind-altering drugs to endure the relentless mental strain. On the battlefield, observers are peerless combatants. Guided by divine foresight, they can avoid nearly any attack with minimal movement, appearing untouchable to their enemies. Their weapon of choice, the trench polearm, is as versatile as it is deadly. It allows them to vault over obstacles, penetrate enemy lines, and deliver devastating strikes. The Eye of God, a crystal embedded in their helmet, further enhances their ability to anticipate and counter enemy actions. Observers also wield the words of God as a weapon. Their helmets amplify their voices, enabling them to issue commands imbued with divine authority. These commands compel friends and foes to obey, albeit briefly, allowing observers to manipulate the battlefield with precision. This ability, however, requires intense focus and can fail if their concentration is disrupted. Despite their exceptional abilities, observers are not invincible. A momentary lapse in judgment or concentration can sever their connection to the voice of God, leaving them as vulnerable as any other soldier. Additionally, the mental toll of their role is immense. The constant echo of divine words often drives them to the brink of madness, and many observers endure heavy sedation to maintain their composure. Observers are also profoundly isolated. Their unique connection to the divine makes ordinary human interactions nearly impossible. Most will never leave the Temple of the Word, except for battle, and they often return deeply scarred by their experiences. The price they pay for their service is steep, but their faith and discipline sustain them in their role. The observers embody the faithful's belief in divine intervention and the power of unwavering devotion. Their ability to commune with the voice of God and turn it into a weapon of war represents humanity's enduring connection to the divine, even in the face of hell's horrors. Though their path is one of solitude and sacrifice, observers stand as living testaments to the faithful's resolve, ensuring that the will of God continues to shape the course of the Great War. These faithful forces are what keeps the tides of evil at bay and expands the lands of the Principality, defending its borders. However, the Hell Gate never rests. Demons emerge in their countless hordes, arriving to overwhelm the last bastion. The faithful of New Antioch needed a way to fight back. No one could enter the domains of hell without falling to corruption. To strike back at the demons in their own lands, the faithful and the techno laboratories set to work to create something new, something that would change the course of the war: the Paladins. Divine warriors forged through centuries of experimentation and unparalleled devotion. These elite crusaders are the pinnacle of the Church's efforts to combat the infernal forces of hell. Imbued with near-divine strength and unmatched holiness, the Paladins stand as living embodiments of the faithful's resilience in the Great War. The Paladin program was conceived as the ultimate answer to the faithful's inability to directly confront the Gate of Hell and its surrounding domains. Even the most pious soldiers found it impossible to endure the supernatural corruption emanating from the Vale of Tears, the gateway to Inferno. Paladins were created to overcome this limitation, granting the faithful a weapon capable of penetrating hell itself and returning victorious. Originally, 12 Paladins were created, but over centuries of relentless warfare, only 9 remain. Each is a near-perfect communicant, a blend of human and divine. Their physical forms are strengthened by the purest blood produced through the Church's Meta-Christ program, enabling them to withstand the harrowing environments of hell and engage in missions within its infernal realms. Paladins lead secluded lives. Housed within the secret wing of Castel Sant'Angelo, they spend their days in contemplation, training, and spiritual preparation for their next mission. Each Paladin is armed and armoured through a sacred process. Blinded and gelded serfs, untouched by impure intentions, assist in preparing their equipment, ensuring that no worldly corruption taints their mission. Before deployment, Paladins receive the last rites prehumously, underscoring the grave dangers they face. The Paladins' equipment is a marvel of divine craftsmanship. Forged from Gothic tektites, a rare and irreplaceable material harvested from the ruins of Jerusalem, their armour and weapons are highly resistant to Hell's forces, but maintaining and repairing these relics becomes increasingly difficult. The Church's inability to produce new tektites since the destruction of Jerusalem has left the Paladins' gear scarred and deteriorated. This results in unbearable physical pain for the warriors, whose faith and resolve are their only shields against suffering. Each Paladin's armour is customised to withstand the unique environments of Hell's 9 circles, whether enduring noxious fumes, searing heat, or sub-zero cold. These suits can defend against any of Hell's environments. However, these suits come at a cost. They are burdensome, causing immense physical and spiritual strain. The Paladins endure this willingly, motivated by their unwavering devotion to the faithful's cause. Paladins are deployed sparingly, only for missions of utmost importance. These include assassinating archdevils, destroying infernal laboratories, or retrieving critical relics. Their actions must provide significant and tangible benefits to the Church's war effort, as determined by the Synod of Strategic Prophecy. Each mission is also a solo endeavour. Paladins operate alone, with no hope of reinforcements or support. Success or martyrdom are the only outcomes. Despite their legendary status, Paladins face limitations. The Church has been unable to create a new Paladin for over 3 centuries, and their dwindling numbers place immense pressure on those who remain. Moreover, rumours of treachery among their ranks cast a shadow over the divine image, though such claims are vehemently denied by the Church. Paladins represent the faithful's unyielding determination to confront Hell's horror. Standing at 17 feet tall when fully armoured, these towering figures inspire awe and hope among the faithful. Yet, their existence is a testament to the sacrifice demanded by the Great War. Scarred, burned, and isolated, Paladins embody the ultimate expression of devotion and perseverance, ensuring that the faithful's fight against Hell continues with unwavering resolve. In recent years, the Duke has dispatched small forces into no man's land to gather intelligence, look for relics, and to gain strongpoints or hold on to positions of importance. Rumours have spread of rising numbers of observers being deployed to the battlefield, and even word on the increased activity of the Paladins has reached the ears of many. It is now up to you to decide if you will lead these strike forces and act as the sword and shield of God and the faithful against the endless and corrupted forces of the devil. This is the faction of New Antioch. After the act of ultimate heresy released the Hellgate upon the world, spreading Satan's wrath on all of creation, a phenomenon began to occur. Visions. Visions from on high entered the mind of many across the world. These visions called the faithful to bear arms, to fight the tides of hell. Men and women touched by heaven are granted visions, and revelations are made by the messengers of God. Sisters of the holy orders are marked by stigmata and take up the sword and cross as instructed by the angels. Those who have transgressed seek to atone for their sins by taking as many followers of the devil with them. So they come, the mad and the maimed, the God-touched and the guilt-ridden. They all make their way to the endless war of no man's land, to the endless Trench Crusade. These are the Trench Pilgrims, followers of the Holy Path. After the faithful countries united to fight the oncoming demons from the Hellgate, many enlisted in their armies, whether out of need, nationalism, or the want to fight those who seek to destroy them. The number of enlisted swelled in all the nations. However, not everyone who wished to fight joined these armies. No, many were touched by the very voice of the Almighty. They were led by these visions to seek out an alternative way to combat the hellish armies, one they saw as more direct. These visionaries became the first Trench Pilgrims. The Trench Pilgrims are one of the most compelling and enigmatic phenomena of the Great War. They represent humanity's unyielding faith its capacity for sacrifice, and its unorthodox yet profound approach to combating the forces of hell. Born of desperation and divine inspiration, these groups have become a symbol of both hope and tragedy, their actions etched into the annals of this grim conflict. The origins of the Trench Pilgrims lie in the dire circumstances of the Great War. As Hell's forces spilled into the mortal world, conventional armies struggled to contain the infernal tide. Amid this despair, individuals across Christendom began reporting visions of saints, angels, and the Redeemer himself, calling them to take up arms and to join the holy procession. Many interpreted these visions as a divine mandate. They felt they were chosen by the Lord themselves to seek out and destroy those who would oppose his will, while others who had committed sins or those riddled with guilt over past actions saw them as a path to personal redemption. For some of them, becoming a pilgrim was an escape from the lives of sin and guilt. Farmers, beggars, soldiers, and nobles alike found themselves united by a singular purpose: to march to hell's shadow and fight for salvation. They felt the purpose of the righteous, the fury of the faithful. They had become some of the toughest resistance to hell's invasion. Though the church did not officially organize these processions, it recognized their potential. In key areas such as the Balkan front or the Principality of New Antioch itself, you may find Trench Pilgrim processions passing through to find a new cause or a new battlefield to fight on. To do this, they sought the permission of the church as final confirmation of their path. Though the church does not fully support the Trench Pilgrims, they saw the use these faithful fighters could provide, and so, blessings were granted, sacraments administered, and the pilgrims were sent forth as martyrs in waiting. Despite their spiritual fervour, the Trench Pilgrims lack a coherent military structure. The processions are often led by prophets or prophetesses who claim to hear the Redeemer's voice. These charismatic figures inspire unwavering loyalty, guiding their followers with fiery sermons and impassionate calls to arms. These prophets are in charge of leading the processions and keeping the faith, and by extent the loyalty, of these processions strong. Leadership within the processions is often fluid, dictated by faith rather than rank or experience. These prophets and prophetesses use their gift of faith to guide the pilgrims through battles, using God's guidance to strike necessary blows against the hellish forces they face. Discipline is enforced by castigators, individuals charged with instilling the fear of God in their troops. Wielding whips and rods, they ensure that no pilgrim wavers in their commitment. This harsh enforcement is tempered by the presence of clerics who provide spiritual guidance and administer rites to strengthen the pilgrim's resolve. They are the keepers of morale and make sure the pilgrims know they are doing God's work on earth. They inspire sacrifice and devotion to something greater than themselves. As they see it, they offer up the pilgrims to God and guide them to the Redeemer's path. The pilgrims' armaments are as varied as their backgrounds. Some wield relics and weapons blessed by the church, while others rely on improvised tools such as pitchforks, clubs, and even Molotov cocktails. Trench pilgrims often pilfer the corpses left by battles past and scavenge from the battlefields after they emerged victorious. Since they lack any formal backing or structure, there are no supplies dedicated to them. This hampers their ability more often than not. However, their lack of standardized equipment is offset by their sheer determination and unshakable belief in their divine mission. Life within a Trench Pilgrim procession is one of constant struggle and spiritual introspection. Days are spent marching through desolate landscapes, their songs and prayers echoing across the wasteland of no man's land as they pass battles and corpses, making their way to wherever their prophet or prophetesses command them. Nights bring moments of respite, where the pilgrims gather around makeshift altars to listen to their leaders and draw strength from their shared faith and confirmation that they are carrying out the Divine's will. Food is scarce, and many subsist on meagre rations, whatever is able to be scavenged from the dead or the charity of local communities. Despite the hardships, there is an unbreakable sense of camaraderie among the pilgrims. Bonds forged in the crucible of suffering strengthen their resolve. They become more of a family than a war party. They share stories and memories with each other to keep morale up, and care for the bonds they make in the hellfire of battle. And even the youngest and weakest find purpose in their collective mission. The processions are a microcosm of humanity's resilience, a testament to the power of faith in the face of insurmountable odds. They show that even when hell comes to greet them, they won't back down. They will rise to the challenge, no matter the odds or the risks. They embody humanity in their purest form. They are resilience. They are defiance. Central to the Trench Pilgrims' ethos is the concept of sacrifice. They believe that their suffering and deaths serve a higher purpose, acting as a shield for the faithful and a blow against hell's dominion. Despite all coming from different walks of life, they find solace knowing that they are making a difference together, that even in death they served a greater purpose than they could have imagined in their old lives. This inspires their will to sacrifice. Suicidal charges across no man's land are common, with pilgrims hurling themselves at the enemy with hymns on their lips and nothing more than a club or piece of rock in their hand. They lay down their lives without a second thought to assist the faithful cause. Their actions draw enemy fire, creating openings for more organized forces to advance. In death, many pilgrims find a grim form of redemption. However, death is not always the end for these faithful soldiers. Are said to be resurrected by the seventh Meta-Christ as martyr penitents, warriors whose bodies are immune to pain and whose spirits burn with unquenchable zeal. These figures inspire awe among their comrades and terror among their foes, serving as living proof of divine intervention. The life of a trench pilgrim is not without its tolls. The horrors of the battlefield, coupled with the burden of their mission, weigh heavily on their minds and spirit. Many are driven to the brink of madness, their faith their only anchor, keeping them from succumbing to despair. This is where their most noticeable and identifiable feature, the iron capirot, comes in. The capirot is a hood that doubles as a gas mask and protects them from hell's corrupting influence. But it cannot shield them entirely. They need more to keep their minds from falling to sin. This is where the clerics play a vital role in maintaining the pilgrim's spiritual health. They offer counsel, perform exorcisms, and administer the sacraments, ensuring that the procession remain steadfast in their purpose. Yet, even with such support, the psychological scars left by their journey are deep and lasting. The cleric guide the warbands to be more godly in their missions, to uphold both morale and faith in attempts to keep the warband on the righteous path. They are not the only people who accompany the processions. Rarer and more dangerous are the stigmatic nuns, sisters of the Trench Pilgrims who manifest wounds to match those of the third Meta-Christ whom the nuns venerate. They excel in close quarters combat, where each bleeding wound that they suffer makes them stronger, not weaker, as their devotion to suffering as the Lord once did gives them strength and endurance not found on mere common mortals. Armed with the swords and pistols, they cross no man's land, heedless of any danger, praying to sustain wounds from the Redeemer, which in turn will transform them into the very vengeance of the Lord. The Church's relationship with the Trench Pilgrims is complex. While it does not directly control the procession, it acknowledges their value as a source of inspiration and a tool of war. Blessings and sacraments are provided, and fallen pilgrims are honoured as martyrs. However, some within the Church view the pilgrims with skepticism, questioning their wisdom of relying on such unorthodox forces. In truth, the Church does not fully trust the Trench Pilgrims. They see them as a discordant rabble who, though useful, can be just as much a hindrance as they can be a help. The Church cannot control the Trench Pilgrims as much as other faithful forces, and so find it difficult to account for them on the battlefield. Despite these reservations, the impact of the Trench Pilgrims on the Great War is undeniable. Their zeal and sacrifice have turned the tide of many battles, and their unwavering faith serves as a beacon of hope for the faithful. There is a bewildering number and variety of Trench Pilgrim processions. The penitents of pious revenge swear in the name of St. Olga and use flamethrowers, burning grenades, and incendiary ammunition to assail the heretics. They wish to cleanse the world in the holy fires as Saint Olga would have done. The pilgrims of the Iron Path follow Saint Rita of Cascia and go to battle with hammers, mauls, maces, and cudgels, and hammer nails into their heads in memory of the saint they venerate. They show devotion to their cause that rivals even that of the most faithful pilgrims, and are known to have unmatched zeal in battle. The Theban Legion of Rome carries the heads of the heretics upon their standards in the memory of their patron Saint Maurice. They fight with swords and other blades, competing with each other for the number of heretic heads they amass. Trench Pilgrims of the Procession of the Sacred Affliction are known for their zeal for close quarters combat. Their armour, decorated with icons and shields adorned with depictions of the saints, which despite appearances can withstand machine gun bullets, and millstones they carry in order to tie them around the necks of sinners before they suffocate them in the mud and blood of no man's land. The legacy of the Trench Pilgrims is one of both triumph and tragedy. They embody the resilience of the human spirit, the power of faith, and the cost of salvation. Their stories are recounted in sermons and hymns, inspiring future generations to carry on the fight against Hell's legions. Yet, their legacy is also a sobering reminder of the sacrifices demanded by war, the lives lost, the suffering endured, and the countless broken souls left in their wake are a testament to the devastating toll of the Great War. For all their heroism, the Trench Pilgrims are a reflection of humanity's darkest and brightest moments. They encapsulate what it means to be faithful in a world infested with darkness. While the pilgrims themselves embody sacrifice, the procession also include others, the penitents and the wretched, whose fates are far grimmer. These figures serve as a stark reminder of the human cost of this holy war. The penitents are individuals who have committed grave sins and seek redemption through acts of extreme self-punishment. They accompany the pilgrims, often walking barefoot across shattered glass or wearing crowns of thorns. These acts of contrition are not merely symbolic, they are a visceral demonstration of their repentance and willingness to endure pain for the sake of their souls. Some penitents are chosen to carry sacred relics, their blood sanctifying these items and amplifying their divine power. Others serve as living shields, placing themselves between the pilgrims and their enemies. Though their actions are born of guilt, they inspire awe and reverence among their comrades, reinforcing the procession's collective faith. The wretched, by contrast, are slaves and prisoners forced to accompany the pilgrims, captured from heretic domains or taken during raids. They are often used as disposable shock troops or sacrificed for goetic magic. Their suffering fuels the dark rituals of the faithful's enemies, making their redemption all the more poignant. Hell's own laws grant the wretched a sliver of hope. Any who slay a powerful foe are granted their freedom, a nod to the ancient rebellion when mortal blood first stained heaven's gates. This means if a wretched takes down a strong demonic foe, they will be granted their freedom and even be redeemed. Few achieve this redemption, but those who do become symbols of hope and resilience within the processions. The Trench Pilgrims, along with the penitents and the wretched, are a testament to the multifaceted nature of faith and sacrifice. Together, they illustrate the extremes to which humanity will go in its struggle against the forces of hell. Their journey, marked by suffering and redemption, is a microcosm of the Great War itself, a battle of light against darkness, faith against despair, and humanity against its own limitations. These units make up the majority of Trench Pilgrim processions. However, the processions do not contain mere men and women alone. They are a combination of the pilgrims and their protectors, be that communicants or stronger. The shrine Anchorites are towering symbols of faith and sacrifice, blending divine devotion with technological ingenuity. These colossal war machines are not merely tools of war, but living altars. their pilots enduring unceasing torment to inspire the faithful and wreak havoc on the forces of hell. Each shrine anchorite represents the pinnacle of the faithful's willingness to endure suffering for the greater good, serving as both a weapon and a monument to the Redeemer's glory. The concept of the shrine anchorite arose from the dire circumstances of the Great Crusade. As Hell's legions grew more formidable, with stronger demons and more hellish devices emerging over the course of the battles, the faithful sought to create a weapon capable of both immense destruction and spiritual fortification. The shrine anchorites were envisioned as mobile fortresses capable of turning the tide of battle, while rallying troops with their unshakable presence. Shrine anchorites are constructed around a central altar, often adorned with relics, holy symbols, and depictions of saints. These altars are sanctified by high-ranking clergy, imbuing the machine with divine energy. Their purpose is twofold: to deliver devastating firepower against Hell's forces and to serve as a beacon of faith, inspiring those who fight alongside them. Central to the Shrine Anchorite's function is its pilot, known as the Anchorite. These individuals are monks who willingly submit to a lifetime of torment within the machine's core. Once sealed inside, the Anchorite is subjected to constant physical and spiritual agony, their pain serving as a conduit for divine power. The selection process for Anchorites is rigorous. Candidates must demonstrate unwavering faith, exceptional mental fortitude, and willingness to endure unimaginable suffering for the sake of the faithful. Upon acceptance, they undergo a series of rituals to prepare their bodies and souls for the transformation. The final rite involves their permanent integration into the machine, a process that ensures they can never leave. Despite their suffering, Anchorites are revered as living saints. Their sacrifice is seen as the ultimate expression of devotion, and their presence on the battlefield inspires awe and reverence. Many faithful believe that the Anchorite's pain strengthens the divine energy that powers their machines, making them an indispensable asset in the fight against Hell. Shrine Anchorites are equipped with a formidable array of weapons designed to devastate demonic forces and fortifications. Common armaments include the adamantine Catherine wheel, massive spinning blades capable of tearing through enemy lines with ease, sanctified cannons, artillery pieces that fire shells imbued with holy light capable of obliterating even the toughest infernal armor, and purification flamethrowers, weapons that unleash torrents of blessed fire, incinerating demonic entities and cleansing corrupted ground. In addition to their offensive capabilities, Shrine Anchorites are heavily armoured, their exteriors inscribed with holy runes that provide protection against infernal attacks. They also emit an aura of sanctity, which weakens nearby demonic entities and bolsters the morale of allied troops. Shrine Anchorites play a critical role in the Faithful's military strategy. Their immense size and firepower allow them to serve as both offensive and defensive assets. On the offensive, they lead charges into enemy territory, breaking through fortifications and scattering demonic hordes. On the defensive, they act as immovable bastions, holding the line against overwhelming odds. Beyond their combat effectiveness, Shrine Anchorites serve as a symbol of hope and resilience. Their presence on the battlefield reminds the faithful of the Redeemer's power and the sacrifices made in his name. This dual role, as weapons of war and beacons of faith, makes them invaluable in the ongoing struggle against Hell. Despite their effectiveness, the use of Shrine Anchorites is not without controversy. The immense suffering endured by the pilots raises ethical questions, even among the faithful. Some argue that the Anchorites' pain borders on cruelty, while others see it as a necessary sacrifice for the greater good. The construction and maintenance of Shrine Anchorites are also resource intensive. Each machine requires rare materials, skills craftsmanship, and extensive sanctification rituals. As the war drags on, the ability to produce and field new Anchorites has diminished, making each one an irreplaceable asset. These days, less and less Anchorites are seen on the battlefields. As more fall than can be remade, their numbers dwindle even lower. Shrine Anchorites embody the extremes of faith and sacrifice in the Great War. They are a testament to humanity's willingness to endure unimaginable suffering to combat the forces of hell. Their towering forms inspire both awe and fear, standing as living proof of the faithful's resolve. As the war continues, the legacy of the Shrine Anchorites grow. Their stories are recounted in sermons and hymns, their images etched into the stained glass and painted on the cathedral walls. They are not merely machines, they are symbols of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of belief in the face of darkness. Through their pain and sacrifice, the Anchorites ensure that the light of the Redeemer continues to shine, even in the darkest of times. Shrine Anchorites often accompany these processions. These towering constructs serve as both mobile altars and engines of destruction. Piloted by the monks who endure constant torment, they inspire the pilgrims while wreaking havoc on the battlefield. Their presence is a stark reminder of the cost of the faith, and the lengths to which the faithful will go to resist hell's forces. As the processions march forward, they carry with them the hopes and prayers of the faithful, forging a path through the darkness with unwavering resolve. Their legacy, etched in blood and sanctified by belief, ensures that their story will be told for generations to come. As the Great War grinds on, the Trench Pilgrims remain a vital force in the struggle against hell. Their actions, driven by faith and forged in suffering, ensure that the battle for creation continues. They are humanity's vanguard and its sacrifice, a testament to the enduring power of belief in the face of darkness. When the infidels opened the thrice-cursed gate to Gehenna, releasing Gog and Magog upon those who believe, it seemed that all was lost, and Satan would emerge victorious over Dunya. This was the fate many of the Muslim nations believed would befall on them after the Hellgate was unlocked and the forces of Gehenna were released unto the world. But the Creator of the universe came to the aid of the faithful, providing them with the defences they need to withstand these demonic forces. And, as had been written, the great iron wall of Zul-Qarnayn manifested itself in the lands ruled by the Sultan of Rum. The Great Wall was a gift from on high. The Almighty had sent a sign to all the faithful. He had not abandoned them, and they would use the divine gift to hold the tide of hellish forces back. These iron gates would not buckle. This iron wall will not break. These are the faithful of Allah, the defenders of the iron wall, the Sultanate of the invincible iron wall of the two horns that pierce the sky. Welcome back to the world of Trench Crusade, and welcome to the faction of the Iron Sultanate. After the act of ultimate heresy, the forces of hell overwhelmed the Levant and began to expand in every direction they could. While the Christian Crusaders battled them on one front, that is not who we will focus on today. In the east, another force was at work. The Almighty had intervened, and as the heretic hordes ravaged the Middle East, the prophecies were shown to be true. With the divine intervention of the Great Iron Wall of Zul-Qarnayn, this great wall blocked the demonic forces' advance and created a safe haven behind its armoured turrets and impenetrable walls. This took place in the lands ruled by the nation known as the Sultan of Rum, which, due to dire circumstances posed by the war, quickly became the Iron Sultanate and began efforts to save as many of the faithful as they could. A call was sent out, refuge from the hellish armies for all those who faithfully believed. This began a mass migration as millions ventured out to seek safety behind the impenetrable defences. Over the coming decades, the migration of the faithful, second only in importance to the Hijrah of the Prophet himself, took place across Europe, Asia, and Africa. As these faithful attempted to reach the safety of the Sultanate, they were hit from every angle by heretics, and all who followed the cursed leadership of hell. Millions perished on the road and at sea, where the heretics and their Shaitan lords swarmed them. These heretics and demonic beings devoured them and built vile monuments and statues from their remaining limbs. This was not only an act of barbarity, but also an act of unimaginable cruelty, as they now could not be buried as is decreed in the holy texts. These disturbing monuments still stand in the wastes of no man's land and in the heretical dominions beyond the wall. But once all those who survived the journey had come, the mighty gates of Al-Karnain were closed, and the great sultanate of the invincible iron wall of the two horns that pierced the sky was formed. Since the closing of the gates, the assault on the Iron Sultanate by the slaves of Jahannam has never ceased. Each day tides of heretics and demons fling themselves up on the wall, and like the tides against the cliffs they break, and each day new martyrs are mourned as they defend the wall and confront any heretic that manages to overcome its defences. However, despite the constant conflict and danger, within the walls lost knowledge flourishes and new weapons are being discovered, engineered, or innovated. Upon while, the mosques of white marble and shining gold hold the faith with their muezzin calling the faithful to pray for the continued success of the Sultan's army as they struggle to push back the forces of Gehenna and to protect the lands outside and within the walls. Though the gates of the Iron Wall are closed, this does not mean they are disconnected from the rest of the world. They require a great many resources in their mission to uphold the Great Wall. For this reason, the armies of the Sultanate are also sent out to defend the vital trade caravans, the lifeblood of the Sultanate, as they provide the Sultanate with vital trade goods. From the towers of New Antioch to the walls of Constantinople, there is no defensive work that comes even close to the Iron Wall, a mighty bulwark festooned with the famed artillery of this Sultanate, providing a near-endless lead barrage against the heretic forces entrenched outside. Alongside the artillery, Azeb sharpshooters stand at the ready, rifles in hand, and ever watchful for the cunning surprise attacks that the heretical forces launch at the most unexpected of times. There are barracks at set intervals throughout the wall. These house the Janissary regiments. They are always near and ready to assist in any breaches or to venture beyond the walls. They are a quick reactive force. However, if a serious incursion occurs, it is not on them alone that the Iron Sultanate relies on. If a major breach occurs, a full muster of Azebs is summoned, enough to counter any attack the heretics can force through. Along with them, the House of Wisdom unleashes terrifying Takwin creations upon the foes. And, if the need is truly desperate, the Sultan himself rides out to battle, and alongside him, his Janissaries, carrying the green flag of the Prophet before him. The wall has been the main focus of the Sultanate's way of war. It is the core of their defense and the primary base of their offense. Their methods and strategies all circle around it. The conscripted Azebs are experts at feigning flights and skirmishes, having the wall to rely on and to fall back on in times where it's needed. They use the wall as a piece in every one of their fights. While the loping lions of Jabeir harass the enemy flanks, all the while the superb artillery of the Sultan bombards the enemy as they make the torturous journey across the battlefield, which has already been littered with traps and weapons from the elite and skilled sappers. If the enemy even manage to pass this first wave of defense, only then will they finally reach the ranks of the faithful Janissaries, the elite troops of the Sultan himself, who then close in and finish the enemy off with devastating countercharges, led by their iron-willed officers. They do not only rely on their might of their standing army alone. The dreaded assassins of Alamut prowl in the winds of time. Near mythical beings who strike deep in the enemy lines, killing enemy elites and leaders, and vanishing as quickly as they appear, all while the mysterious alchemists of the House of Wisdom work on deadly weapons, which they can release upon the heretic forces. Devastating weapons made deadly by their elemental mastery, capable of overcoming the defenses of virtually any foe. Much of the old world lies beyond the wall. While the Sultanate remains secure behind it, small mobile companies are sent to operate in the wastes of no man's land. These small elite teams each have their own individual missions to accomplish, whether it be to sabotage the demonic war machine, assassinating key figures in the hellish court, or hunt down apostates that have gone to serve Shaitan, look for relics of the prophets, or to seek and recover lost treasures and books of ancient knowledge from the fallen caliphates. The Sultanate sees itself as the true resistance against the wrath of hell, and believe their God is the one truly helping humanity defy the will of the devils. Though there is an understanding between the Church and the Sultanate, as they are both co-belligerents against Jahannam, this does not stop tension between the two faiths, as the commanders of Sultanate's expeditions will not tolerate any interference, and do not hesitate to crush any who would choose to place themselves in the way of their holy missions, and hindering their progress. There is a deep resentment within them against those of the Church, as to them, these were the ones who released Gog and Magog, and they are just as likely to duel a faithful fighter to the death than work with them to defeat the heretics. The mighty army of the Sultanate has a complex structure and is compiled of a vast and varied number of units. Let us begin with the ground units and the backbone of the army of the Sultan, the Azebs. The Sultanate's territories are vast, enabling it to raise numerous armies from its many provinces. In these regions, one household in 20 is obliged to arm and equip a soldier to serve the ruler of the faithful. These soldiers are commonly known as Azebs, their term meaning unmarried, as only single men are eligible. Those with families are exempt from this duty. Azebs function as light infantry on land and sea, and are also responsible for defending the Great Iron Wall against assaults by the Heretics. When elite forces are dispatched beyond the wall on missions to strike the enemy or recover sacred artifacts, the Sultan's recruiters call for volunteers. Despite the perilous nature of these expeditions into no man's land, many Azebs willingly step forward. These missions offer the prospect of earning fame and the opportunity to acquire valuable loot, making them an enticing challenge for many soldiers. The weaponry used by the Azebs varies significantly, as they lack access to the superior arms, armour and alchemical innovations reserved for the Sultan's elite troops, such as janissaries or cataphracts. A hallmark weapon of the Azebs is the Jazail, a long firearm with a distinctive curved stock. These weapons are handcrafted, resulting in considerable variation in their designs and quality. Jazails are deeply personal to their owners and are often intricately decorated. They can fire a wide range of ammunition, including roughened bullets, long iron nails, or alchemically treated fragments from the Great Iron Wall, making them highly adaptable and less dependent on the traditional ammunition supplies. In addition to Jazails, Azebs carry other weapons, such as a curved dagger, scimitars, pistols, and equipment suited for sappers. Armour, however, is a rarity among them. Since Azebs are primarily deployed as light skirmishers to harass and tie down enemies, while heavier troops deliver decisive blows, the superiors see little value in providing them with costly protective gear. This lack of armour contributes to their high casualty rates, but the belief in paradise for those who die in service to their faith ensures a steady stream of replacements. The wars in the trenches are particularly cruel, and many Azebs meet tragic ends. Those who survive often return physically or mentally broken. Yet, the allure of glory, the hatred of the heretics, and the chance to return as heroes, laden with gold and thrilling stories, continue to attract new recruits. No matter the dangers, the Sultanate never lacks for willing Azebs eager to risk their lives for faith, honour, and the promise of reward. Sappers form a vital part of the Sultanate's standing army, tasked with safeguarding the Great Iron Wall. As volunteer conscripts, they serve in the Underground Corps, a specialised unit dedicated to countering the relentless efforts of the Heretics to undermine the wall's mighty foundations. Deep underground, in the stifling darkness and choking dust, these soldiers engage in fierce battles to thwart the blind, clawed beasts the Heretic use to dig tunnels into the Sultanate's realm. Many meet their end in ambushes by Heretic assault squads or perish in devastating cave-ins, where the slow suffocation of being buried alive is a grim reality. Here, warfare is brutal and unrelenting, fought with fire, bullets, poison gas, and devious traps that turn the labyrinthine tunnels into deadly battlefields. Recruits who survive a year of this harrowing journey emerge as hardened veterans and are promoted to the Sapper Corps, allowing them to serve above ground. These seasoned fighters are renowned for their extraordinary courage and composure under the most intense of enemy bombardments. Having endured the horrors of subterranean combat, they view every day under the open sky as a blessing from Allah. Above ground, they operate the legendary Sultanate's great cannons, which have repelled countless heretic warbands and minions of Shaitan. Though often at a terrible cost, sappers are easily recognized by their scarred and burned bodies, which they bear with pride as marks of their valor and high status. When deployed beyond the wall, sappers frequently carry out experimental weaponry such as Alibazan shotguns, and are instrumental in both defending and capturing trenches. They also prepare fortified positions for advancing Sultanate forces. Their expertise in explosives is unmatched. They excel at disarming enemy devices and deploying the ingenious Tuffengief anti-personnel mines. These mines are strategically placed to slow enemy advances, buying time for the Sultanate's artillery to wreak havoc on the disoriented and vulnerable enemy forces. The ingenuity and resilience of the sappers makes them an indispensable element of the Sultanate's military might. The Janissaries are the Sultanate's elite warriors. Raised from the childhood in the arts of war, captured during raids against the desolate northern and eastern marches beyond the Iron Wall, they are subjected to rigorous martial training and indoctrination from an early age. Through spiritual and alchemical means, bound by chains unseen, their minds are carefully conditioned until they attain a complete and unwavering loyalty to the Sultan, and to him alone. Their physical attributes are augmented by potent elixirs created by the mystic's Jabbereen arts. Their ornate armour is forged from the metallic formula that the Alchemy of the Sultan gleaned from the very iron wall that protects the Sultan from their enemies. These soldiers are also protected by the powerful talismans crafted by the blind thaumaturgists from the school of meteoric omen. Armed with Jezzail rifles, hand mortars, Yakutan blades, and devotion carved upon their very souls, the Janissaries are formidable opponents indeed. On the battlefield, Janissaries excel at storming enemy strongpoints and trenches, crushing elite formations, and acting as the bodyguard for high-ranking officials. Though the Sultan uses them sparingly beyond the wall, since they also are from his personal bodyguard, some Janissaries are sent to the front line to bolster the cause of the Sublime Gate. In the middle of the mud, blood, and dust of the trenches, their richly decorated panoply of war creates a beautiful and frightening spectacle as they charge the enemy lines, with total conviction that paradise awaits those who fall in righteous battle. Military expeditions beyond the Great Wall into the perilous expanses of no man's land are fraught with danger. Commanding these missions are field officers, known as Yuzbasi, chosen solely based on merit without regard for lineage or wealth. Many of these skilled leaders rise to the ranks of elite Janissary Corps, earning their positions through valor and capability. The bodies of the Yuzbasi are enhanced by the alchemical arts of the Jabbereen scientists, and their minds are conditioned by mystics to remain steadfast in the face of the enemy. However, this mental conditioning comes at a cost, an unyielding disregard for pain, and an icy ruthlessness on the battlefield. To them, casualties, whether among their own ranks or the enemies, or non-combatants, are viewed through a lens of cold pragmatism. Is it not righteous, after all, to send heretics to Jahannam while fallen warriors awaken in paradise, as promised? Under the command of powerful Pasha, Emir, and even the Sultan himself, the Yuzbasi leads elite squads on critical missions. These tasks might involve reclaiming sacred relics lost during the catastrophic period when heretics stormed the Levant, or assassinating powerful adversaries, such as heretic nobles who once swore fealty to the Sultan, but turned against Allah. Yuzbasi are equipped with the finest equipment. Their armour, forged from meteoric iron, is unparalleled in durability, while their carbines are gilded with silver and loaded with alchemical shot. They wield kill-edged swords that bear inscriptions in golden calligraphy recounting the deeds of past Sultanate heroes. Those who distinguish themselves in service to the Sublime Gate may have their own names and exploits etched into these legendary blades, inspiring future generations. The most powerful Yuzbasi carry devastating hand cannons that double as halberds, combining firepower with brutal close combat capabilities. Exceptional hunters wear cloaks made from the pelts of their gracious kills, such as chimeras, which also protect them from the sinister powers of Shaitan. Triumph on the battlefield brings Yuzbasi great rewards, including the Sultan's favour, honours, and lavish gifts. They receive weapons forged from Damascus steel, abundant gold dinars, and access to the extraordinary inventions and creatures of the Jabbereen alchemists from the House of Wisdom. Hunting is a revered tradition among the officer corps, and artificial birds of prey and automaton hounds are often included in their arsenal. These mechanical marvels are not only symbols of prestige, but also formidable tools of war, accompanying the masters to the front lines to ensure victory. Beneath the golden gardens of Damascus lies a labyrinth of marvels. Through the cavern of the sleeper and beyond the 7 gates of potentiality are the sprawling laboratories and metaphysical factories of the alchemists. Here, the mystical Jabbereen process, known as Takwin, allows these master craftsmen to create artificial life, conjuring wondrous beasts and automatons that enchant the bustling souks and adorn the Sultan's grand gardens. Even deeper, beyond the 7 hidden gates of actuality, lies the most secretive and perilous sanctum of alchemy. In this shadowy heart of the complex, the art and science of Takwin reach their most advanced and dangerous form, producing the fearsome creations known as the Lions of Jabir. Despite their name, the Lions of Jabir are not conformed to leonine forms. Each one is a singular masterpiece, shaped by the skill and imagination of the Jabbereen scientists who bring it to life. This dark craft, drawn from the forbidden books of Solomon, is fraught with peril. Failed experiments often lead to catastrophic results, claiming the lives of many alchemists. Yet, the demand for these deadly creations by the Sultanate's army ensures the program endures, regardless of the risks. The process of creating Lions of Jabir is fraught with the complexity and unpredictability, leading to frequent malformed mutations. Though still formidable predators on the battlefield, many suffer from chronic pain caused by their physical deformities. The plight is even more harrowing for those gifted or cursed with human-like intelligence, as they grapple with the horrifying awareness of their unnatural origins and existence. In war, the Lions of Jabir are unmatched vanguards, their spirit and ferocity striking fear into the hearts of the Sultanate's enemies. The Sultan himself keeps a personal hunting pack of 77 massive Lions of Jabir, who guard him relentlessly and accompany him into battle. Some lions possess extraordinary abilities, granted by the alchemical process of their creation. Many are adorned with armour fused into their very flesh. Crafted from alchemical metals and inscribed with cryptic seals and sigils. These enhancements not only increase their lethality, but also conceal the flaws inherent in their creation, turning them into symbols of both power and tragedy. The siege guns and heavy mortars stationed along the wall's ramparts are unrivaled in their defensive power, but their size and weight render them impractical for smaller mobile expeditionary forces. Recognizing these limitations, Sultan Bayezid III, in the year of the Hijra, 1821, issued a decree on the creation of a new war machine, a living field artillery capable of accompanying his armies into battle. To fulfill this command, the Jabbereen scientists of the Royal Artillery devoted centuries to mastering the divine art of Takwin. Working in their hidden laboratories, they conducted countless experiments, often at great costs, acquiring invaluable knowledge along the way. Their efforts culminated in the creation of a masterpiece of warcraft, the Brazen Bull, known as Bogai to the Sultanate soldiers. The Brazen Bull is a monstrous being of unparalleled strength and endurance, capable of feats such as rending even the most fearsome devil spawn in two. Armed with heavy artillery, too massive for even the superhuman janissaries to wield, these creatures carry flame cannons, volley guns, and holy blades sanctified by the word of the Great Protector. Their weaponry ensures they are both devastating and versatile on the battlefield. Encased in magnificent bronze armour, crafted from the thrice-hardened scales, the Brazen Bull is further adorned with talismans of protection and the blessings invoked by the Creator's grace. Beyond the Iron Wall, these towering behemoths inspire awe and terror in equal measure. Fearless and unwavering, the Brazen Bull acts as both a walking fortress and an unyielding shield, serving as a rallying point for the Sultanate's war parties. Their sheer power is enough to shake the very ground with every volley, disrupting enemy formations even when their strikes do not find their mark. As a symbol of strength and ingenuity, the Brazen Bull stands unmatched among the creations of the Sultanate's alchemical art. The alchemists of the Great Sultanate of the Iron Wall are revered battlefield mystics and master artificers. Their knowledge, rooted in the enigmatic teachings of the Smaragdine Tablet and cultivated within the esteemed House of Wisdom, admission to their ranks is open to anyone with sufficient intellect and determination, regardless of gender. The path to becoming an alchemist is arduous and fraught with challenges. Aspirants begin with rigorous studies, immersing themselves in the Jabbereen corpus, translating the ancient keys of Solomon, and mastering the fundamental disciplines of their primeval science. Only after 7 years of intense training under the watchful scrutiny of the High Alchemagi may they attempt the 3 trials necessary for full initiation into the order. The first trial requires the aspirant to craft a suit of alchemist's armour, a vital tool for their trade. This armour, inscribed with the seals of Solomon, shields the wearer from harm, enables them to manipulate elements of creation, and protects against even the infernal devices of hell. The second trial involves the creation of a Taquin servant, a homunculus, a creature of artificial life and intellect. The process demands meticulous adherence to the formulas, as well as precise timing and temperature control. After 40 days of labour, a successful creation emerges as a small humanoid creature with remarkable abilities. Its fluid-like body allows it to navigate extreme environments, enduring the searing heat and toxic fumes, to assist its master in delicate alchemical tasks. However, failure in this trial can be dire. A malformed and vengeful homunculus may rise, attacking its creator by burrowing into their body and consuming them from within, wearing their flesh like a macabre suit. The third and final trial is the opening of the aspirant's third eye, granting them cosmic insights into the building blocks of creation. This enlightenment allows them to achieve perfect elemental balance in their craft. Yet, failure at this stage is catastrophic. The third eye may grotesquely expand and fuse with the aspirant's original eyes, driving them into madness as they are overwhelmed by the horrifying truths now visible. Such unfortunate individuals often live in unending torment, their minds shattered, and are usually euthanized out of mercy. Though rumors persist of clandestine cabals keeping these failures alive for unknown purposes. Those who pass all 3 trials emerge as true masters of the alchemical arts. Alchemists wield the power to command fire and ice, manipulate metal and liquid, and construct intricate machines, artificial life, and devastating weaponry. In exchange for the freedom of pursuing their craft, they serve the Sultanate by creating unrivaled Jabbereen battle lions and by fighting on the front lines. Armed with alchemical compounds capable of dissolving flesh and armour alike, they strike terror into the enemies of the believers, ensuring that the Sultanate's dominance through their unparalleled esoteric skills are assured. The Sultanate is not without its allies. Out in the depths of no man's land hides a city, an unconquerable fortress that trained the most elite units of believers. They are known by many names: Ghost Wolves, Secret Knives, Subtle Vipers, the Sultan's Wrath. By any title, the assassins of the Sultanate strike fear into the hearts of even the most fearless. This legendary order of mystic warriors is renowned worldwide for their arcane skills and ruthless precision. Their stronghold is the ominous onyx fortress of Alamut, the Unconquerable, perched atop a foreboding mountain. Within its shadowy walls lie ancient secrets guarded by the Magi of the Order. Some whisper that Rashid ad-Din Sinan, the fabled Old Man of the Mountain and founder of the Order of Hashashins, still reigns there. A claim dismissed as impossible, for such longevity would span nearly 8 centuries. Although the Ismaili sect of assassins is deemed heretical by many in the Sultanate, a long-standing pact between the Sultan and the Mountain ensures that these peerless killers often accompany the warbands of the believers. Through sacred rituals and potent hallucinogens discovered by their magi, assassins wield the ability to manipulate space and time. This arcane mastery enables them to infiltrate enemy lines with ease, eliminating targets with unparalleled efficiency. They appear to be in multiple places, simultaneously striking with blinding speed and then retreating moments in the past, eluding any retaliation. All their efforts serve a singular purpose: the eradication of the Sultan's enemies through ritualized holy assassinations. This mission requires excruciating transformations. Their bodies are altered by alchemical unguents and potions, granting them towering height, extraordinary strength, and superhuman speed. Although skilled in the use of all weapons, assassins favor poisoned blades crafted in the hidden forges of Alamut. These weapons are imbued with the supreme poison, also called the Milk of Manat or the Cup of Death. A mere graze from these blades on unprotected flesh guarantees death, as the victim's body blackens and decays within seconds. In the labyrinthian, chthonic chambers beneath Alamut, generations of assassins are raised on a vile and bitter diet laced with rare toxins. Over time, their bodies develop a profound resistance to these poisons. The blood of these assassins, enriched with their lethal heritage, is drawn and smelted into a venomous iron used to forge their weapons. These blades, wickedly curved and layered with deadly enchantments, are forged to perfection. Once heated to a searing red, they are quenched in the venom of pale hybrid creatures, offsprings of a basilisk and a manticore. In this way, the blood of the Order's first generations persists, growing deadlier with each passing era. Thus, the assassins of the Sultanate continue their grim legacy, blending mysticism, alchemy, and ruthless efficiency into a force that none dare oppose. In recent years, attacks on the Great Iron Wall have become more deadly. More heretics slip past sappers and janissaries alike, and more operations are conducted outside of the Iron Wall than ever before. It is up to you to lead the mighty believers and their great armies against the forces of the heretics, and to defend the Sultanate at any cost. This is the faction of the Sultanate of the Great Iron Wall. As the Great War rages on, visions and divine revelations drive many among the faithful to take up arms as Trench Pilgrims. These groups consist of individuals from various backgrounds, the devout, the desperate, and the guilt-ridden, who arm themselves and march towards the front lines under the guidance of prophets and prophetesses. While not officially sanctioned by the Holy Seal, Church blesses their crusades, recognizing their zeal and faith as valuable assets in the eternal battle against hell. Trench Pilgrims processions are loosely organized groups, often inspired by the divine visions or driven by intense guilt and desires for redemption. They are armed with a mix of old and improvised weapons, from muskets to Molotov cocktails, and exhibit unmatched fervor on the battlefield. These processions frequently launch suicidal charges across no man's land, urged on by their leaders and castigators, who enforce discipline and devotion through fear and punishment. Many pilgrims wear the iron caparot, a distinctive hood that protects their minds from the horrors of hell and doubles as a gas mask. The equipment symbolizes their readiness to confront both physical and spiritual threats unflinchingly. Death is not always the end for these warriors. Those deemed worthy by the 7th Metachrist are resurrected as a martyr penitent, becoming tireless, pain-immune fighters who continue their mission even after death. Trench Pilgrim processions vary widely in their practices and equipment, often shaped by the saints they venerate. For instance, the penitents of pious revenge employ flamethrowers and incendiary ammunition in honour of Saint Olga, while the pilgrims of the Iron Path use hammers and nails, emulating Saint Rita of Cascia's suffering. The Theban Legion of Rome carries severed heads of heretics on their standards, competing to amass the most trophies in homage to Saint Maurice. Despite their chaotic organisation and high casualties, the Trench Pilgrims embody the faithful's unbreakable resolve. Their willingness to fight insurmountable odds and embrace suffering for the Redeemer's cause serves as both a tactical advantage and a powerful symbol of hope in the grim reality of the Great War. When the Hell Gate was unleashed on Earth, not everyone fled to the faithful. Some saw these new demons and saw a power greater than that of God. A third of humanity fell and began to worship the devils of hell. This is what made the Heretic Legion. A third of humanity has pledged loyalty to hell, forming the core of the Heretic Legions, a formidable force of damned mortals and infernal abominations. These legions represent the primary satanic military on Earth, with their ranks composed of twisted soldiers and nightmarish creations bound by unholy pacts to their devilish masters. Joining the Heretic Legions is a grueling process requiring prospective recruits to undertake a pilgrimage to the gates of hell. Along this path, known as the Valley of Tears, the recruits endure unbearable heat, their flesh seared and their spirits tested. Only those with the darkest hearts survive and are branded with the mark of their infernal masters, signifying their eternal damnation. For some, the journey continues beyond the gates into the lake of eternal flame, where they are transformed into the Anointed, elite warriors clad in Gehenna-forged heavy armour, their bodies permanently scarred by the fires of hell. The Heretic Legions combine mortal soldiers with demonic reinforcements. Their ranks include war beasts, grotesque creatures created from possessed animals, and artillery witches, who act as mobile weapons platforms in Hell's arsenal. The legions also deploy choristers, horrifying entities formed from self-mutilated zealots. These creatures carry their severed heads, singing unholy hymns that weaken the resolve of their enemies and spread visions of eternal torment. The infernal armories supplied the Heretic Legions with weapons forged using Hell's dark metallurgy. From flaming blades to cursed bullets that infect and corrupt their targets, these armaments surpass the capabilities of mortal technology. Artillery witches launch devastating barrages, while war beasts and anointed lead brutal close combat assaults, wielding weapons of immense size and power. The Heretic Legion's greatest strength lies in their unholy unity of mortals and Hell's creatures. The synergy between humans and infernal beings allows them to dominate battlefields and extend Hell's influence. Cities corrupted by the Heretic Legions become grotesque parodies of their former selves, while idols to Hell's princes and factories producing endless weapons and war machines. The Heretic Legions are relentless in their pursuit of heaven's downfall. Despite occasional setbacks, their ranks are constantly replenished by the damned and the willing. their unholy crusade seeks to bring parity between hell and heaven, ensuring that the Great War's horrors persist indefinitely. In their wake, they leave despair, destruction, and a stark reminder of the cost of defying divine order. Among the many horrors of the Great War, the Black Grail stands as the deadliest and most feared plague unleashed upon creation. Born from the malevolent will of Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies, the Black Grail embodies corruption, suffering, and relentless devastation. Unlike typical diseases, this infernal curse spreads indiscriminately, consuming all living matter it touches. The Black Grail emerges from Beelzebub's domain in the 7th layer of Hell, where vast swarms of demonic insects, hellflies, scorpions, and locusts are unleashed upon the world. These swarms spread rapidly, infecting their victims with tumors, boils, and weeping pustules. Flesh melts into puddles of agony while retaining sentience, leaving victims trapped in unending torment. After 9 days, the swarms turn cannibalistic, devouring one another until they dissipate. The aftermath is no less horrifying, as infected bodies, both human and animal, rise as grotesque undead vessels, controlled by Beelzebub's demonic will. These shambling creatures spread the Black Grail further, ensuring the plague's continuity and mocking the faithful's attempts to combat it. The plague's influence extends beyond physical devastation, giving rise to a twisted mockery of worship. Survivors who embrace the Black Grail from warbands devoted to Beelzebub, erecting altars from the remains of their victims. These altars, shaped like monstrous flies, stand as a monument to their depravity. Loot and grisly trophies are brought as offerings, mocking the faithful's sacred rituals. At the forefront of these warbands are the Knights of the Order of the Fly. These depraved individuals willingly embrace the plague, receiving corrupted weapons and armor directly from Beelzebub. Their devotion fuels the cult's efforts, ensuring its spread across the land. Despite their best efforts, the faithful have yet to find a cure or reliable defense against the Black Grail. Entire settlements are often sacrificed, burned to ash using flamethrowers fueled by holy anointed oil to prevent further contamination. These grim measures are a testament to the plague's overwhelming power. The Black Grail is more than a weapon. It is a symbol of Beelzebub's hatred for creation. Its unrelenting destruction challenges the faithful's resolve and underscores the stakes of the Great War. As the faithful struggle to contain its spread, the Black Grail continues to spread fear and despair, and leaving a legacy of unparalleled horror. The Iron Sultanate is a bastion of faith and resilience, standing as a shield against the forces of hell. Its defining feature, the Iron Wall of Zulkarnain. The Iron Wall is a colossal defensive structure imbued with divine power, erected to protect the faithful from the infernal onslaught. This wall symbolizes divine intervention and serves as the cornerstone of the Sultanate's defense and identity. The Sultanate emerged in response to the catastrophic opening of the Gate of Hell, which unleashed demonic forces upon the world. Following the prophecy of the Iron Wall, the faithful embarked on a mass migration to the sanctuary, enduring immense hardship to find safety behind its gates. While millions perished on the journey, those who survived formed the great Sultanate of the invincible Iron Wall. The structure's completion marked the consolidation of the Sultanate's power and its divine mandate to protect humanity. The Iron Wall itself is a marvel of engineering and faith. It is heavily fortified with artillery and manned with elite Azeb sharpshooters, vigilant against surprise attacks. Barracks housing janissaries are positioned along the wall, ensuring a swift response to any breach. In the event of a major incursion, the Sultan himself leads the defense, with his banners bearing the green flag of the Prophet. The Sultanate's defensive strategy relies on layered tactics. Azeb conscripts engage in feint retreats and skirmishes, harrying the enemy while the Sultanate's renowned artillery bombard from afar. If foes breach these defences, janissaries, the Sultan's elite troops, counterattack with devastating precision. This strategy reflects a balance of attrition and decisive strikes, designed to maximize the Sultanate's military strength. Beyond the wall, the Sultanate's forces conduct targeted expeditions into no man's land. These missions aim to reclaim holy relics, recover lost treasures, and eliminate key heretic leaders. While these operations are critical to the Sultanate's long-term goals, They are fraught with danger. Commanders of these expeditions, known as Yuzbasi, are selected for their merit and are renowned for their cold efficiency and unwavering resolve. The Sultanate society is deeply unified by faith. The mosques serve as a central spiritual strength, and the Iron Wall standing as a physical manifestation of divine protection. The House of Wisdom, a centre for learning and innovation, contributes to the Sultanate's defence by developing advanced weaponry and alchemical creations. These efforts underscore the Sultanate's commitment to blending faith with practical ingenuity. The Iron Sultanate represents the enduring spirit of the faithful, standing resolute against Hell's forces. Its unyielding defence and strategic offences highlight its role as a critical ally in the broader struggle against the Infernal. Despite the immense pressure and constant losses, the Sultanate endures as a beacon of hope and divine intervention, ensuring humanity's fight for survival continues. The Iron City of Deesh, a towering infernal fortress shrouded in corrosive smoke, houses the court of the seven-headed Serpent. This council of 7 archdevils, each embodying a mortal sin, governs Hell's war against creation. These figures, known as the Heads of the Serpent, dictate the military campaigns of the Great War, orchestrating the chaos and destruction that flows from the Hellgate. The court's political landscape is perpetually unstable. Statues of the Serpent Heads representing wrath, envy, pride, gluttony, greed, sloth, and lust rise and fall as power shifts between archdevils. Only Mammon, the head of greed, has consistently retained his seat, while other positions are seen constant upheaval. Ambitious devil lords rise and fall in treacherous games of betrayal, often incurring humiliating defeats that force them to start their ascent anew. The court's decision operates on a fragile majority vote, making alliances and rivalries crucial to retaining power. The influence of a head is also tied to the number of mortal followers corrupted to their cause, leading to fierce competition to spread sin and despair across the earth. This rivalry assures a constant reshuffling of the Serpent's heads, with new pretenders eager to claim the glory of ruling. While Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies, is the most powerful figure associated with gluttony, he refuses to take place in the court. Instead, he wages his own war against creation through the Black Grail, leaving the hungry throne to lesser devils. This act of defiance underscores the fragmented nature of Hell's leadership. The wretched, mortal slaves captured or sold to Hell, serve as fodder for the court's forces. Stripped of hope, they endure unspeakable torment, their minds shattered by glimpses of damnation. However, Hell's law offers a slim chance of redemption. Any wretch who slays a mighty foe gains their freedom, honouring the memory of the first rebellion, where angels waged war against heaven. The court's war strategy prioritizes the corruption and suffering of mortals. By limiting the size of war bands, Hell ensures the brunt of the Great War's carnage falls upon humanity. This tactic not only spites the divine, but also amplifies Hell's power, as more souls fall into sin and despair. The court influence waxes and wanes, but its unrelenting focus on undermining God's creation ensures that the war against the faithful continues without end. These 6 factions are the key players in the Great War of Trench Crusade. It is up to you who you side with, whether it be the Principality of New Antioch as a soldier, or whether you are led by visions to become a Trench Pilgrim. If you have fallen to sin in the Heretic Legion, or are in the cult of the Black Grail, spreading Beelzebub's creation, you must choose your warband and wage war against your enemies. A shroud of impenetrable darkness smothers the world, a funeral veil drawn over a realm consumed by despair. From the abyssal depths of the infernal gates, thick plumes of smoke and choking brimstone billow forth, suffocating the lands once bathed in divine radiance. The people have turned their backs on God, casting off his commandments and embracing the twisted dominion of Hell. It is a bleak and harrowing era, where nearly a third of humanity has forsaken the holy word, kneeling instead before the idols of the abyss. These wayward souls now form the core of the Heretic Legions, the primary military force of Hell on earth, composed of the damned and the depraved, These legions marched to war under the banners of sacrilege, in their existence a grotesque mockery of divine order. After unleashing of the Hellgate, a third of Earth decided to bow down to these new lords of darkness. They enlisted willingly or not into the vast hordes of the unfaithful. These now fueled the armies of the heretics to expand the hellish domain on Earth, spreading sin and hate, fear and chaos. These are the followers of Hell, the traitors to humanity, and welcome to the faction of the Heretic Legion. After the taking of the Levant, a new rule settled over the land, a demonic rule, as a third of humanity bowed to its hellish masters and established the hellish dominion on Earth. Within these cursed dominions, the architecture itself is a reflection of the sheer depravity that has taken root. Great inverted pyramids and abyssal towers plunge deep into the blackened earth, their obsidian structures lined with altars drenched in the lifeblood of ceaseless sacrifices. The weeping cries of captives echo through the gloom, their suffering prolonged over weeks as their bodies slowly flayed and mutilated upon infernal stone slabs. Above these pits of torment, great cathedrals dedicated to the princes of hell dangle precariously from arches of volcanic rock, their interiors adorned with blood-stained icons and statues that leer with unholy delight. Crucifixions are abound, but in this grotesque parody of salvation, the condemned are affixed to their crosses upside down, their suffering a spectacle for the twisted congregations of the abyss. But it is not only the ritualistic atrocities that fuel the war machine of hell. Beneath the surface of these forsaken cities, vast foundries churn day and night, their iron hearts fueled by the tormented flesh of the damned. Factories composed of pulsating, mutilated bodies melded with blackened steel forge unholy weapons of war. Their twisted designs, guided by the hands of Tartarus's most wicked artisans. Infernal alchemists, tutored by the dark whispers of their demonic patrons, toil over monstrous engines of destruction. Armoured behemoths clad in nightmare-forged metal, and weapons so vast and complex that no ordinary human mind could ever conceive them. The spoils of this accursed industry flood into the hands of the Heretic Legions, arming them for their ceaseless crusade against heaven itself. In a desperate bid to combat the encroaching tide of darkness, spies are dispatched into the territories of hell, their mission sanctioned by the highest authority of the Church, the Cardinal Protector himself. Few ever return. Most are captured, their fates sealed in torment, their mutilated forms never seen again. The rare few that do emerge from the clutches of the abyss return as shattered husks of men, their minds burdened with visions too ghastly for mortal comprehension. Some are sent back in pieces, most notably their severed heads, delivered in ornate boxes to the citadel of New Antioch. These grisly trophies bear cruelly carved runes, bleeding profane messages that blaspheme the Holy Trinity. For those who manage to endure their ordeal and live to tell of it, their whispered accounts speak of unfathomable horrors. Firstborn children cast screaming into the gaping mouths of molten statues devoted to Baal, human flesh sold like common livestock in infernal marketplaces, and the grotesque revelry of the damned, who carve away their own flesh in ecstatic offerings to the golden calf. Though the Heretic Legions are primarily composed of fallen men, Hell does not wage war with mortals alone. Alongside these corrupted souls march the dreadful progeny of the abyss, war beasts, grotesque amalgamations of captured creatures and infernal possession, and the dreaded artillery witches, sorceresses who wield their bodies as living conduits for demonic fire, their shrieking spells raining devastation upon the forces of the faithful. In this nightmarish theatre of war, the damned and the monstrous march as one, united by the bonds of their eternal suffering. The air trembles with screams of the tormented, the sky burns with the fury of celestial retribution, and the earth itself weeps under the weight of the Heretic Legion's relentless advance. This war is unending, its stakes beyond comprehension. The damned will not cease their march until the throne of heaven is cast down, or until the last wretched soul is torn from the clutches of the abyss. This is the War of the Ages, the eternal struggle between salvation and oblivion. Among the blighted populace that endures within these nightmarish strongholds, there exists no higher honour than to take up arms in the service of hell. To be a warrior in the armies of the damned is to claim a place of prestige, yet the path to such an ignoble fate is paved with agony. Those who seek to join the Heretic Legions must embark upon a harrowing pilgrimage to the great bronze gates of hell itself, where even the mere proximity to its infernal heat sears both flesh and soul. The path leading to these dread portals, known as the Valley of Tears, is a hellscape of suffering, a road paved with the lamentations of tormented souls, their wretched forms writhing in unceasing agony. Great mounds of charred bodies line the way, the smouldering remnants of those who faltered, their sins deemed insufficient to merit true damnation. These forsaken beings will suffer here until the end of days, neither alive nor fully dead, their moans forming a ceaseless dirge of despair. Only those who endured the torment and reached the gates themselves are deemed worthy of initiation. There they take unbreakable vows that bind their essence to infernal legions for all eternity, their bodies forever branded with the mark of the archdevil who has claimed them. The great armories of hell are then thrown open to them, outfitting them with blasphemous armaments and twisted relics of war. Heretic priests, their bodies adorned with flesh-wrought vestments, invoke the names of their dark lords, welcoming the new recruits into their cursed fold. Thus, a new heretic legionary is born, another soul damned beyond salvation. Yet, amongst these willing thralls, there exists those who push further still, pressing beyond the thresholds of damnation itself. These are the anointed, the elite of the Heretic Legions, paragons of unholy might and unwavering devotion to the abyss. They journey past the gates, stepping into the heart of hell itself, their very flesh igniting under the unrelenting heat. They do not scream, but their agony is baptism in damnation. Their bodies blacken, and their flesh forever charred and unhealing, yet, in exchange, they are granted infernal strength beyond mortal reckoning. Clad in the fearsome heavy Gehenna plate, their scarred forms exude a terrifying aura, and it is said that to look into their eyes is to glimpse into the ceaseless fires of hell reflected within. Some go further still. There are those who seek to transcend mortality altogether, embracing the ultimate blasphemy, suicide in the name of hell. Though such an act is often in vain, for the Lords of the Abyss delight in betrayal as much as they do conquest. There are a few whose depravity is so absolute that even the Redeemer's laws of death cannot contain them. These wretched souls are reborn as choristers, walking abominations whose severed heads sing ceaseless hymns of infernal praise. Their cacophony of discordant chants rends the sanity of all who hear it, their unholy voices so piercing that the ears of the righteous bleed at their sound. Among the army of hell are the Werewolf Assault Beasts. The Werewolf Assault Beasts are monstrous war creatures bred in the deepest pits of hell to serve as living siege engines in the Great War. Towering over mortal soldiers, these abominable beasts embody sheer brutality and relentless aggression. Their forms, twisted by infernal alchemy and dark sorcery, they are integral to the part of hell's war strategy. Capable of breaking through fortified positions, devastating battle lines, and sowing terror among the faithful. The origins of the werewolves lie in hell's abyssal breeding pits, when captured mortal beasts are fused with demonic essence. These creatures are subjected to extensive modifications, their flesh reshaped through dark rituals, to enhance their size, strength, and endurance. The strongest werewolves are created from hellhounds and other infernal predators, their original forms barely recognizable after undergoing generations of enhancements. Each werewolf is bound to a handler, usually a heretic beastmaster or an infernal sorcerer, who controls the creature through a combination of pain and infernal commands. These handlers ensure that the werewolves remain focused on their objectives, directing them towards critical points in the battle, with cruel precision. Werewolf assault beasts are massive, their bodies covered in thick, iron-hard hides, resistant to conventional weaponry. Their jaws can crush armor with ease, while their razor-sharp claws rend through flesh and steel alike. Some variants are equipped with infernal plating and spiked exoskeletons, making them even more formidable in direct combat. In battle, werewolves function as living battering rams, charging through enemy lines with devastating force. Different breeds of werewolves have been developed to suit various battlefield roles. Some of the most infamous include Hellfire werewolves. These werewolves are capable of exhaling gouts of searing flames. These beasts are used to incinerate defenders and clear entrenched positions. Plague wolves are infected with demonic blight. Their bites spread disease and corruption, turning fallen enemies into twisted undead abominations. Dreadfang werewolves are engineered for stealth. These are smaller, more agile variants and excel in night raids and assassination missions. The mere sight of werewolves on the battlefield is enough to send shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned warriors. Their effectiveness has been demonstrated in countless battles, their relentless assaults responsible for the fall of many faithful strongholds. Even when defeated, their destruction often requires immense resources and casualties. The werewolf assault beasts remain a terrifying symbol of Hell's relentless war, embodying the infernal force's willingness to blend raw savagery with strategic warfare. As long as the Great War continues, these monstrous war beasts will remain a dire threat to the forces of the faithful. Heretic priests are twisted counterparts to the faithful clergy, having forsaken divine grace in favour of the power granted by Hell's dark gods. Serving as intermediaries between the mortal legions and their infernal overlords, these corrupted priests wield unholy magic and spread blasphemous doctrines. They oversee the spiritual corruption of their followers. Their presence on the battlefield ensures that the Heretic Legion remain unwavering in their service to the infernal hierarchy. Few willingly become heretic priests. Most are former clergy who have fallen to temptation, despair, or the lure of forbidden knowledge. Some are captured faithful priests who have been broken through torture and dark pacts, while others are scholars and sorcerers who sought power beyond mortal comprehension. Their initiation into the infernal priesthood often requires a ritual desecration of sacred places, the sacrifice of the innocent, or the direct branding of their souls by demonic entities. Heretic priests wield terrifying abilities, acting as both spellcasters and spiritual leaders for the damned. Their dark blessings and infernal rites bolster the strength of the Heretic Legions while sowing fear and despair among the faithful. Heretic priests lead infernal ceremonies, guide legions in battle, and serve as conduits for their demonic master's will. They are responsible for converting prisoners, overseeing the spiritual subjugation of conquered lands, and ensuring that Hell's influence spreads ever further. Feared and despised in equal measure, they stand as living proof of the horrors that await those who stray from the light. From an early age, a select group of heretic youth are chosen to be raised as death commandos. Undergoing brutal training beyond the gates of Hell, few survive the grueling trials, but those who emerge are some of the most elite warriors of the Heretic Legions, silent, merciless assassins who bring death without warning. Barracked in the 7th Circle of Inferno, these operatives are trained by the most infamous killers, their instructions being the damned souls of history's greatest murderers. They master an arsenal of weapons and poisons under the tutelage of the personal guard of the archdevil Belith, learning to move like shadows through the battlefield, leaving only death in their wake. Their signature weapon, the Tartarus Claw, are forged in Hell's deepest forges and quenched in the waters of the river Styx, their venom deadlier than any known toxin. Many carry silenced firearms, ensuring their targets fall unseen and unheard. Equipped with advanced stealth generators, powered by the heart of an innocent and infused with infernal sorcery, they can evade even the watchful eyes of the divine. Once their training is complete, the Death Commandos emerge from the abyss as ghosts of carnage, feared by the faithful above all other heretic troops. Among their ranks, 3 names stand out in infamy: Cain, Barabbas, and Haman. These are the assassins responsible for the simultaneous murders of the Supreme Pontiff, the High Prophetess Aliyah, and the Holy Roman Emperor in 1894. This act of precision and ruthlessness shattered the Church's leadership and allowed the Heretic Legions to launch a devastating offensive across the Levant and Europe. As a final act of devotion, every Death Commando undergoes the ceremonial removal of their tongue, ensuring that they will never speak of what they have learned. Their eerie silence only deepens their terrifying mystique, as they communicate solely through an intricate system of hand signals known only to their kind. Moving like phantoms, they bring annihilation to the faithful, striking from the darkness before vanishing once more into the shadows of war. From the moment they are born, heretics are taught that the god-tyrant Yahweh demands submission, but some refuse to bow. These defiant souls, consumed by hatred for the celestial order, choose to commit ritual suicide as an act of ultimate defiance. Knowing they lack the power to wound the divine, they spit in his face with their own destruction. This is considered a mortal sin, and to take one's life in tribute to hell is an even greater affront to God. Among the heretic, those born with powerful voice, but lacking the means to ascend the ranks, may find a dark purpose, becoming a chorister. To undergo this transformation, supplicants journey to the black altars hidden deep within the inverted pyramids, dedicated to the archdevils. There, clad in robes of damnation, they lay upon the altar and carve unholy runes into their own flesh. Their pain is their offering. The deeper they cut, the greater their devotion. And the most fanatical slit their own throats, striving to sever flesh and voice alike before their spirits are cast into the abyss. Most perish and are cast into the lake of fire, never to rise again, but the most devoted are reborn after 9 days, their corpses lurching back to unholy life. Completing their grisly beheading, they lift their severed heads high, from which pours a never-ending hymn learned in the Inferno. From their open wounds, cold blood gushes forth, forming diabolic sigils that shift and reshape to mirror their unholy canticles. Drawn by the unseen force, they march to the front lines, seeking a warband to join. When the choristers sing, their dirges penetrate the minds of their enemies, filling them with horrific visions of the pits of hell. The faithful, upon hearing their unearthly chorus, find their wills sapped and their limbs weak, as if the very fires of the abyss are consuming them. Their songs are often the first sound a new soldier hears on the battlefield, a foreboding prophecy of hell's inevitable triumph over heaven. The infamous military hospice of New Antioch contains an entire wing dedicated to those who have never recovered from hearing the song of the chorister. These broken souls lie strapped to iron-framed beds, endlessly screaming about the world to come, where darkness will reign eternal, illuminated only by flames that never die. The Heretic Legions employ a myriad of infernal entities to wage their unholy war against the forces of heaven and the Church. Among these dark instruments of warfare, the artillery witches stand out as particularly enigmatic and formidable. These beings, shrouded in mystery, serve as living artillery units, bringing devastation to the battlefield with their uncanny abilities. Artillery witches are characterized by their lithe forms and strange garments, which may seem out of place amidst the chaos of war. However, they are among Hell's most dangerous and mysterious creations, possessing the power to pull ordnance directly from the factories of Hell's third circle. They can obliterate enemy fortifications with a mere wave of their hand. These witches are completely mute, and no one has ever seen their faces. Some question if they are even living, and there are tales that they too were manufactured in Hell. They can pull an infinite number of infernal bombs from a portal to Hell that they manifest at will. Their infernal explosives appear in their hand from a gate of midnight blackness. The origins of the artillery witches are shrouded in mystery. Their mute nature and concealed faces lead to speculation about their true nature. Some believe they are not living beings at all, but constructs manufactured in Hell's infernal factories. Their ability to manifest infernal bombs suggests a direct connection to Hell's third circle, indicating a level of power and control that surpasses that of the ordinary heretic. Artillery witches exemplify the fusion of dark magic and industrial warfare that defines the Heretic Legion's approach to combat. Their presence on the battlefield not only provides a psychological weapon, instilling fear and uncertainty in the hearts of their enemies, the sight of these enigmatic figures silently unleashes destruction, embodies the relentless and unearthly nature of the Heretic Legion's campaign against the forces of heaven and the Church. Artillery witches are a testament to the dark ingenuity of the Heretic Legions. Their unique abilities and mysterious origins make them a formidable presence on the battlefield, embodying the fusion of infernal magic and industrial warfare that characterizes this grim war. The term wretched refers to the enslaved individuals conscripted into the ranks of the Heretic Legions and the court of the seven-headed serpent. Their existence is marked by ceaseless suffering, as they are subjected to backbreaking labor in infernal factories, slaughtered for sustenance, or, in the most harrowing of fates, sold to demonic entities and transported through the Hellgate. The origins of the wretched are diverse. Many are captives from battles or raids conducted by heretic war bands, while others are adventurers who ventured too far into cursed territories and fell into the clutches of ever-watchful patrols. Within the domains of the damned, these unfortunate souls become a form of currency, with heretic priests often paying their taxes to demonic overlords in the flesh of the captured. Life for the wretched is a relentless torment. They are worked to death in factories, butchered for meat, or worst of all, sold to the agents of the court of the seven-headed serpent. However, a singular, perilous path to a semblance of freedom exists. The wretched can volunteer to serve in the Heretic Legions as the lowest tier of penal troops. This decision, born out of sheer desperation, involves being branded with cursed, flesh-eating tattoos to prevent escape, and being heavily drugged to dull their will while maintaining aggression. Their lives are expended carelessly by heretic elites, as their deaths in battle are considered virtuous deeds rewarded by their infernal patrons. The court of the seven-headed serpent subjects the wretched to even more abominable fates. Devoid of demonic blood, these individuals are used as disposable shock troops, or as subjects of torture to fuel the goetic magic of sorcerers and other practitioners of the dark arts. Captured during hunts, sold to devils within heretic domains, or ensnared after wandering into areas where boundaries between worlds are thin, their minds are scarred by the witnessing of horrors of damnation while still alive. The existence of the wretched is a testament to the depths of human despair and the lengths to which individuals will go to escape unending torment. Their plight serves as a grim reminder of the horrors that unfold when the boundaries between the mortal realm and infernal domains are shattered. As the heretic dominions expand across the land, more and more fall to the devilish overlords. It is up to you to lead these demonic forces in their war against heaven. This is the faction of the Heretic Legion. At the heart of hell, amidst the ever-churning fires and toxic smoke of the iron city of Dish, sits the great black keep that houses the Infernal War Council. This dark and towering structure is home to the greatest of Hell's archdevils, 7 beings of immense power, each representing one of the 7 mortal sins. Known collectively as the Heads of the Serpent, these devils, each a twisted manifestation of wrath, envy, pride, gluttony, greed, sloth and lust, command not just the armies of hell, but the very fate of creation itself. It is in this place that hell's military strategy is devised, and the devastating campaigns against creation are set in motion. Welcome to the faction of the Course of the Seven-Headed Serpent. The Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent is the political body that oversees Hell's war against the mortal world, and it is through this court that the full might of Hell is directed. Each of the 7 archdevils that make up the court is a personification of one of the 7 deadly sins. These vices, once thought to be a mortal weakness, have been elevated to a position of divine-like power in the infernal hierarchy. Wrath is a fiery and destructive force, ruling through fury and violence. The Devil of Wrath is often the first to strike in any war, raining down destruction upon those who oppose Hell's will. Envy thrives in the shadows, scheming and manipulating, always desiring what others have. This devil is the most secretive and underhanded, preferring to destroy through subterfuge rather than direct combat. Pride, the most majestic of the arrogant of sins, believes itself to be above all others. The devil of pride leads with an iron fist, demanding absolute loyalty and admiration from all beneath them. Gluttony consumes everything in its path, an insatiable hunger that knows no bounds. The devil of gluttony, Beelzebub, is the most powerful of all, ruling through sheer access and indulgence. His influence felt across both hell and creation. For this reason, he has separated himself from the Court of the Seven and refuses to take his seat among them. Greed drives its followers to hoard wealth, power, and influence. Mammon, the devil of greed, is the only one among the heads who has held his position for an extended period, using his vast riches and influence to maintain his power. Sloth is a lethargic, apathetic force that seeks to drain the energy and willpower of those it touches. The devil of sloth is often underestimated, but their subtle manipulations can bring even the mightiest warriors to a standstill. Lust is the embodiment of carnal desires and temptation. The devil of lust uses seduction and persuasion to manipulate others, driving them to fulfill their basest desires, often at the cost of their morals and lives. The Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent is far from a stable institution. Despite its monumental authority, the leadership within the court is in constant flux. The positions of the 7 heads are highly coveted, and each devil vies for dominance over the others. Power in hell is fickle, and only the most ruthless and cunning can maintain their place at the top. As such, the political landscape of the court is one of constant maneuvering, betrayal, and warfare, even among the devils themselves. The devil of greed, Mammon, is the only one who has managed to hold his position for a significant length of time, largely due to his immense wealth and influence. Mammon's wealth grants him a vast network of spies, allies, and resources, allowing him to stay ahead of his rivals. However, the other positions are subject to frequent turnover. Dukes, margraves, barons, and other infernal nobles constantly fight for power, with each of them hoping to seize one of the 7 heads for themselves. This power struggle is reflected not only in the actions of the devils themselves, but also in the mortal world, where ambitious demon lords seek to exploit the chaos for their own gain. One of the key aspects of this political instability is the constant rebuilding of the statues of the 7 heads. These statues, massive and imposing, are erected by yoke fiends who labour tirelessly to honour the current rulers of the court. However, as the balance of power shifts, these statues are often torn down and replaced by new ones, symbolising the rise and fall of the various devils. They are treated as sacred icons, and are also reminders of the transient nature of the power in hell. The cycle of construction and destruction represents the ever-changing political dynamics of the court. The primary function of the Court of the Seven-Headed Serpent is to direct Hell's war against creation. Under the guidance of the court, the warbands of Hell are summoned to the mortal realm, where they wreak havoc and spread corruption. These warbands consist of a variety of infernal creatures, including the formidable Hell Knights, desecrated saints, and yoke fiends, each playing a different role in the infernal armory. The warbands of the court have had a profound impact on the mortal world, particularly since the opening of the Gate of Hell during the ultimate heresy of the Templars. This cataclysmic event allowed the forces of Hell to spill forth into the mortal realm, where they crushed mortal armies and left devastation in their wake. Cities and villages were wiped out, and survivors were either converted into heretics or left to rot in the wake of Hell's wrath. The warbands led by the devils of the court are highly unpredictable in their actions. A praetor may strike at seemingly insignificant villages, causing immense destruction, only to turn and betray their own mortal allies. Sometimes the warbands clash with each other, as rival devils seek to expand their influence and gain more power. These unpredictable shifts in behaviour have caused chaos and confusion among mortals and heretics alike, who are left to wonder whether their leaders are truly on their side, or if they are merely pawns in a far larger and more twisted game. The warband's missions are often fueled by a desire to corrupt and disturb God's divine plan. The demons use goetic magic, which taps into the suffering of mortals to manipulate the fabric of reality itself. By causing pain and death, the demons harness the released energy to alter the world around them. This manipulation of reality is what makes the warbands such a terrifying force, as the very nature of the world begins to warp and twist under their influence. The course of the seven-headed serpent is the heart of Hell's war against creation, and its politics are as brutal and treacherous as the war itself. The devils of the court wield immense power, but their rule is far from secure. Power shifts constantly, and even the mightiest of devils can be toppled by those with more ambition, more cunning, and more ruthlessness. As the war continues, the mortal realm is caught in the crossfire, with the warbands of Hell laying waste to everything in their path. The court's influence continues to grow, and the future of creation itself hangs in the balance as Hell's forces march closer to victory. The armies and warbands of the court are unlike anything seen before. Creatures of infernal design and heretics of ultimate loyalty make up these terrifying armies that breach the defenses of the faithless time and time again. Their ranks are made up of creatures such as yoke fiends, praetors, and desecrated saints. A yoke fiend stands about 7 and 8 feet tall, a hulking brute of shivering fat and corded muscle, its body warped by infernal craftsmanship, its flesh is branded and scarred, each mark a declaration of ownership by some greater demon. These sigils, burned into their hide by the cruel hands of hell priests, ensure that no yoke fiend ever forgets his purpose: servitude. Their skin, stretched over dense, ape-like limbs, is marred by deep carvings, the wounds never truly healing, festering as a reminder of their eternal bondage. The yoke fiends bear features of beasts and men alike: great twisting horns like a bull, hooved feet that stomp the ash-covered wastes of hell, and gargantuan arms, thick as tree trunks, built to carry burdens no mortal could withstand. Their bones are unnaturally dense and forged in suffering, allowing them to withstand the most grueling torments. These fiends serve as the living beasts of burden for Hell's war machine, hauling siege engines and dragging chains of captive souls, erecting unholy monuments in the name of their dark masters. But despite their strength, a deep self-loathing festers within them. They cannot bear to see their own reflections, for in their heart of hearts, they remember what they once were. Before they were bound by sin and corruption, they had been known for beauty, glory, and had a purpose. Perhaps as mortals, angels, or lesser demons who dared to defy their masters, now they are little more than slaves, shackled in both body and mind. When they catch glimpses of themselves in darkened pools or polished steel, they roar in anguish, their minds momentarily unraveling at the sight of their twisted, fallen forms. And yet, despite their hatred, they remain eternally bound to their masters. Their immense strength and resilience make them indispensable, and as long as the war against creation rages, the Yoke Fiends will continue to march beneath the banners of hell, bearing their burden in silence and dreaming of a freedom that will never come. The existence of the wretched is one of unrelenting misery, their lives spent in torment and toil, under the rule of the 66 Lords of Hell. These wretched souls are the lowest caste in the infernal hierarchy, doomed to suffer in countless horrifying ways. Many are worked to death in the hellish factories of the 66 Lords, their bodies expended to fuel the ever-hungry war machine of the Great War. Others meet a fate even more ghastly, butchered for meat, their flesh consumed in grotesque rituals, or simply as sustenance for the monstrous entities that prowls the domains of hell. But the worst fate of all is to be sold to the agents of the Court of the Seven, dragged screaming through the Hellgate to a torment beyond mortal comprehension. Yet, for those desperate enough, a single, terrible path to freedom exists. The wretched may volunteer to serve in the legions of hell, though their existence as a soldier is hardly better than slavery. Branded with flesh-eating curses, their bodies are marked with sigils that devour their own skin should they attempt to flee. Their minds are warped and dulled by heavy drugs, stripping them of their will, while leaving their aggression intact. The heretic elites view them as utterly disposable, hurling them into battle with reckless abandon. Their death serves as a form of twisted penance, a final virtue that may earn them some dark reward from their infernal patrons, though such promises are rarely fulfilled. Yet, even this wretched existence is preferable from falling into the hands of the court. Lacking even a drop of demon blood, these unfortunate souls are seen as less than nothing by the infernal nobility. They are used as shock troops, thrown against the faithful in suicidal assaults. Others are reserved for torture, their agony fueling goetic magic, wielded by the sorcerers and warlocks of hell. Some are captured in hunts, stalked, and seized like animals, while others are sold in the heretic domains, traded as currency among the dark lords of the damned. Some are simply unlucky, foolishly stumbling into thin places where the veil between earth and hell is weak, only to be dragged into the abyss. Regardless of their path, the wretched exist only to suffer, their only escape lying in death, a fate, for many, is a mercy too long denied. When the course of the seven-headed serpent rides forth upon the earth, a great pall of smoke precedes them, choking the sky with soot and sulphur, heralding an unspeakable doom, and lo, from within the darkness of that smoke, the air fills with the baying and buzzing of pit locusts, an omen of humanity's destruction. These vile creatures swarm ahead of the court, their presence a blight upon all that live, a nightmare loosened from the depths of hell itself. The origins of the pit locusts are shrouded in mystery and fearful whispers. Some ancient texts claim that they were once sealed behind a filth-encrusted bronze gate, trapped in the bottomless pit since time immemorial, awaiting the moment when the infernal key was turned in its lock. Others say they were once angels, lesser Ishim, who fell into depravity, sacrificing their celestial nature upon the altars of Baal and Moloch. In their blood-maddened frenzy, they feasted upon the flesh of children offered to the graven images of the old gods, forgetting the divine knowledge that had once been their birthright. Banished and cursed, they became monstrous, things that lurk in deep and dark places of the earth, awaiting the day when the great battle horns of hell would summon them forth. Whatever the truth may be, the opening of the Hellgate saw the pit locusts unleashed upon the world in terrifying swarms. With their feral cunning and wicked bloodlust, they tore through the ranks of mankind, reveling in their newfound purpose as tormentors of the living. During the first battles of the Great War, when the Levant was overrun, it was the pit locusts that broke the formations of the faithful, driving men into despair and chaos. Their role in these early victories earned them a grim reward, the right to hunt alongside the court of the seven-headed serpent. Now, wherever the court rides, the pit locusts follow, descending upon the vanquished like a living plague. They are permitted to take their share of the spoils, to gorge themselves upon the broken bodies of the fallen, feasting upon mankind as both a punishment and a feast. Their buzzing wings fill the night with an ear-splitting drone, a song of ruin, and their cruel laughter echoes through the smoke-filled skies. They are relentless, insatiable, and unholy, forever bound to the damned hunt, reveling in the suffering of those who stand against the tides of hell. Once they are righteous rulers and holy leaders, champions of faith and justice, dedicated to prosperity and the glory of their people. They sought to uplift their nations, defend their faiths, and leave behind legacies of greatness. Yet, in their pride, desperation, or a zealous pursuit of martyrdom, they strayed from the narrow path. Convincing themselves that the ends justify the means, they committed acts of unspeakable sins and atrocities born from what they believed to be righteous intent. Some sacrificed living humans, convinced they were fulfilling divine will, while others waged wars long after they were commanded to stop, unable to relinquish the power or their vengeance. Still more sought miracles through sorcery, turning to the forbidden arts in pursuit of divine favor, but in the end, each was cast down, their glorious ambition crumbling to ruin, and upon their death, their bodies were entombed within grand reliquaries, once meant to house their sacred remains. Yet, these gilded shrines did not carry them to eternal rest. They awoke in hell, entombed within these reliquaries, only to find that the very monuments meant to honor them had become their prisons for all eternity. Desecrated saints are now living trophies, kept as symbols of pride and conquest by the mighty devil lords who orchestrated their downfall. Their once revered reliquaries have been twisted and corrupted into grotesque walking prisons, built from the bodies of their most loyal followers and their greatest fallen foes, the devoted warriors and retainers who once pledged to follow their holy sovereigns beyond death have been fused into the hulking body of this abomination, their armor tarnished, their weapons corroded, and their souls trapped in never-ending dirges of despair. The longer a desecrated saint exists, the more it grows, accumulating countless bodies, broken blades, shattered shields, and shattered faiths, over millennia, forming an ever-expanding monument to corruption. These grotesque cathedrals of the damned are the prized possessions of hell's infernal nobility, and competition among the archdevils is fierce. Each seeks to claim the most magnificent desecrated saint, the one that displays the greatest prestige and infernal grandeur. With every new vanquished champion of Yahweh, the saint collects their shields, banners, and relics, hanging them upon his body in a mockery of the Tower of David, which was said to bear 1,000 shields. Now, instead of symbols of divine protection, these relics are gruesome trophies, reminders of the fallen and the forsaken. When the court of the seven-headed serpent rides forth, whether to make war or to hunt, the desecrated saints march with them. They serve as blasphemous war standards, towering testaments to hell's dominion over the fallen faithful. But more than mere symbols, they are weapons of unparalleled horror. The very presence of a desecrated saint warps reality itself. Within the aura of its profane existence, the laws of God begin to break down. Light dims, gravity distorts, and strength becomes weakness. Armor shatters like fragile glass, and the most holy, sacred relics lose their power, crumbling beneath the weight of the saints' eternal damnation. In the battle, the desecrated saint wields a terrifying arsenal. Once holy weapons and sacred artifacts, now twisted by the will of hell. With each swing of its warped and blighted blades, it brings ruin upon creation, channeling hell's power in ways no mortal heretic could ever dream of. Those who stand before it do not simply face death, they face the embodiment of shattered faith and relentless marches of damnation. The eternal reminder that even the holiest can fall. To the few mortals who have glimpsed a praetor and lived to tell the tale, it is as if they have gazed upon the very devil himself. Their monstrous forms, their blasphemous presence, and the sheer weight of malice that surrounds them leave no doubt in the mind of the witnesses that have encountered one of hell's gracious lords. But this is not so. The truth is more wretched and cruel. Praetors are the bastard offspring, the unholy spawn of devils and beasts. Born of creatures such as hyenas, jackals, or wolves, their blood is tainted with morality, preventing them from ascending to the highest echelons of hell's infernal hierarchy. No matter their cunning or might, their beastly lineage brands them as a lesser being in the eyes of hell's nobility. Only through centuries of cruelty, ruthlessness, and demonstrating strategic brilliance can a praetor hope to earn a position of true power. Until then, they serve as overseers for lesser demons, enforcers of infernal law, and hunters of the damned. Despite their low-born status, a praetor is no ordinary demon. Their heritage traces back to celestial beings. Albeit fallen and tarnished beyond recognition, they stand towering over lesser creatures, their forms twisted, mockeries of divine grace. Each praetor is born with 4 faces, reflecting the features of their angelic progenitors. However, the midwives of Lilith enact a ritual of desecration upon their birth, ripping away the human-like face, a deliberate act of scorn against their celestial ancestry, and a mockery of the Trinity. What remains are 3 bestial faces, each capable of independent thought and speech, and each a mouthpiece of deception and ruin. The 3 voices of a praetor do not speak in unison, nor do they tell complete lies. Instead, they weave a web of deceit, each mouth layering subtle falsehoods upon the next. One may speak a half-truth, the second may twist it, and the third may cloak the deception in honeyed words. A mesmerizing harmony of manipulation, suggestion, and damnation. Those who hear the siren-like cadence of their speech find their will eroded, their doubts magnified, and their faith corroded. Many have been led to ruin, madness, or willing servitude, all while believing they are following their own free will. A praetor's wings are a further insult to creation. Bearing the likeness of their bestial broodmothers, these leathery, nightmarish appendages are lined with fanged mouths, which vomit gore whenever human blood is spilled in their name. This fetid, defiled blood is no ordinary fluid. It is a potent fuel for the praetor's sorcery, strengthening their goetic magic and allowing them to warp reality, bend minds, and summon infernal forces. Though hell's nobility may look down upon them, praetors serve a crucial role. Their mortal ancestry grants them a unique advantage. Unlike the rebel seraphim, they are not bound to the covenant of hell. This allows them to slip into the mortal realm undetected, leading the hunting parties of the court without breaking the ancient accords that prevents direct warfare between heaven and hell. Because of this, they are the hand of hell on earth, enacting judgment upon the faithful and delivering false prophecies, plaguing mankind with ruinous hunts. When the court of the 7 rides forth to hunt, it is often a praetor that leads the charge. its three voices whispering doom, and its blood-stained wings dripping with the essence of past victims, and its eyes filled with the cold, calculated malice of a being that was never meant to exist. Atop towering spires that claw against the blackened sky of hell, the sorcerers of the court of the seven-headed serpent weave their terrible incantations, shaping the fate of their infernal lords. Within the depths of their scrying chambers, they enter trance-like states, peering into the veils of time and reality. Their insane, ululating chants echo across their master's fiefdom, an eerie, ceaseless cacophony that both torment the damned and calls their lord's warbands to battle. A mighty devil lord may command thousands of these sorcerers, each a fragment of something far greater. Each sorcerer is formed from a shattered sliver of a fallen angel, a remnant of those cast out of heaven in the Great Rebellion. These beings are not truly alive, nor truly dead. Frozen in the exact moment when their divine existence was severed, and stripped of their seraphic gifts, they have been reduced to shadows of their former majesty. Yet, their celestial origins still grant them immense magical potential. Though diminished, they remain powerful conduits for hell's dark sorcery. Their pursuit for forbidden knowledge takes them to many peaked, nightmarish mountains of hell, where the tablets of infernal wisdom lie hidden. Just as Yahweh had bestowed his laws upon the holy mountain, so too does hell reveal its blasphemous truths upon the accursed summits of its own realm. These tablets hold secret spells of destruction, manipulation, and corruption, but to find them requires great effort and sacrifice. To locate such a priceless relic, the sorcerers rely on blind augurs and soothsayers, souls who once sought enlightenment only to wander too far and find damnation instead. Guided by the cryptic prophecies of these doomed seers, they pore over ancient lore and shifting maps. For hell's landscape is ever changing, its paths shifting like the coils of the great serpent itself. When the appointed time and place is finally discerned, an expedition is mounted, but it is no simple journey. The wilds of hell are filled with eldritch horrors, and time within its depths ebbs and flows, stretching centuries into moments or collapsing eons into fleeting instants. When the expedition reaches the designated mountain, the sorcerer must ascend alone, and there, at the summit, if they are worthy, they may uncover one of the lost tablets of hell's forbidden arts. Few return, but those who do bring back tablets of unfathomable power, which are then translated and studied by legions of damned demon scribes. Yet, such knowledge is powerless. Entire fiefdoms have been annihilated, their very essence unmade by the volatile forces within these artifacts. But, when success is achieved, a sorcerer ascends in power, mastering the goetic spells contained within the tablet. Their dark rituals are fueled by the agony of the wretched, either purchased in hell's flesh markets or offered as tribute by mortal followers. Each sorcerer devotes themselves to the mastery of a single school of magic, and each one is tied to one of the 7 deadly sins. In this way, they become living conduits of vice and destruction, their spells shaping the will of hell and the doom of mankind. The hunters of the court of the seven-headed serpent are devoted practitioners of the left-hand path, forsaking all laws of heaven and hell in pursuit of their own dark enlightenment. They stalk the primordial hinterlands of hell, dwelling in the cancerous, ever-shifting wilds where reality twists and time itself becomes fluid. These hunters are both predators and prophets, using their mastery of vile auguries to discern omens and portents through gruesome rituals, disemboweling their still living prey and reading the patterns of spilled entrails like divine scripture written in blood. The hunters navigate the secret paths of hell, following ancient ley lines that connect the ruins of eon-old shrines, battlefields, and forgotten kingdoms. These sites, once monuments of great wars and ancient pacts, are now overgrown with the blight of hell. Ignored even by the scribes and cartographers who chronicled the abyss. But, to the hunters, these places hold power, and in the solitude of their pilgrimage, they make appalling ablations, genuflecting before enigmatic forces whose names have long been erased, even from the memories of the archdevils themselves. Their left arms serve as both their weapons and brands of devotion. Transformed through horrific rites performed in the forges of Pandemonium, into their flesh they drive nails of infernal iron, causing their limbs to twist and warp to demonic forms, often shaping themselves into powerful hunting bows that fire arrows of their own diseased blood. These accursed darts do more than kill. They paralyze and induce visions of the victim's inevitable demise, or worse, warp the target's mind until they willingly walk to their own execution. Draped over their bodies, the hunters wear the pale, star-speckled skin of oracle beasts, creatures that once wandered the burning plains of hell, gazing eternally at the doomed heavens above. Even in death, the eyes of these oracles remain open, embedded in the flesh of the cloak, ever vigilant, watching over their new master. Unlike the legions of hell, the hunters do not answer to the call of war easily. The devil lords may summon them, but the hunters heed no authority but their own. They are creatures of solitude, preferring the whispered wilds of hell over the crude conquests of the infernal courts. When a hunter does choose to join the hunt on earth, they move effortlessly through no man's land, just as they do in the wastes of hell, for the ley lines of damnation are mirrored in the cracks of fallen creation. Where they tread, omens turn to nightmares, and the hunted know their doom is nigh. Heretic priests whisper of these cursed warriors, claiming they were once lesser fallen angels or mighty immortal champions, granted infernal elevation only to be cast down once more for some perceived or genuine betrayal. Whether through arrogance, failure, or the fickle whims of their masters, they were exiled from the burning palaces of the pit, doomed to a fate worse than death. Their once glorious forms, alabaster and radiant, are now twisted and folded in upon themselves, warped 1,000 times over, crushed into a tomb of tarnished, jagged armor that serves as both prison and punishment. The sheer horror of their warped divine flesh is beyond mortal comprehension, and to glimpse within their armor is to witness the writhing abomination of celestial ruin. Glaring eyes of scorching light, and shrieking blasphemous mouths, and twisting pulsing organs crushed into a space barely 1/10 of their original size. Their every breath is agony, and their every movement a reminder of splendor they are lost forever. Though physically diminished, their inordinate pride remains unbroken. They brook no insolence from the wretched mortals that serve them, and their mere presence demands absolute submission. Once they are privy to the great secrets of creation, but now their minds are clotted with endless blood, a fractured consciousness bent into a singular, jagged prism of murderous obsession. To them, the earthly realm is a torment, a cold and suffocating exile, as unbearable as the hell flames are to mankind. Yet, even in this diminished state, they remain terrifying, standing as nightmarish titans against the mortal soldiers who dare face them. These are the Hell Knights, and to them, the earthly realm is a torment, a cold and suffocating exile, as unbearable to them as hell flames are to mankind. Yet, even in this diminished state, they remain terrifying, standing as nightmarish titans against the mortal soldiers who dare face them. Though they are less than nothing compared to the exalted glory of their former selves, they are still unstoppable engines of slaughter, and their wrath a blackened echo for the divine fire that once burned within them. They are the bannermen of the court. They lead warbands into battle, and with their infernal might do their Dark Lord's bidding. Now, it is up to you. Shall you serve in the seven-headed court, within the rivals of politics, and fight for their warbands as they take more of the faithful land, or their war on creation? This is the court of the seven-headed serpent. Across the battlefields of the Holy Crusade, there is no lack of diseases. Trenchfoot, typhus, malaria, typhoid, smallpox, yellow fever, pneumonia, trench fever, Marquisian disease, and countless others ravaged the trenches and battlefields of the Great War. But they all pale in comparison to the most dreaded of them all, the Black Grail. A horrific disease that turns those it touches into servants of the Dark Lord Beelzebub. These demonic creatures, infected and cursed to do his unholy will, are seen all across the plains of war. They are the remnants of the dead, the gravest affliction known to man, the heralds of Beelzebub. Welcome to the cult of the Black Grail. The cult of the Black Grail is one of the most horrifying and insidious manifestations of Beelzebub's influence in the world of Trench Crusade. Unlike traditional demonic cults, it is not a structured order of devoted worshippers, but rather an apocalyptic force, an unrelenting tide of disease and corruption that spreads like a living nightmare. The cult's purpose is not to gain power, wealth, or dominion. It exists purely to accelerate the rot of all creation, a blasphemous parody of divine grace where suffering is the only truth. Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies, does not rely on mortal worshippers to spread his will. No, instead, when he rises to prominence in the eternal power struggles of hell, he unleashes the Black Grail, a virulent, supernatural blight composed of infernal insects, living plagues, and flesh-consuming corruption. This pestilence is not merely a biological affliction, but a spiritual contagion that warps both body and soul, consuming entire civilizations in its wake. First recorded between 1346 and 1353 during the Corpse Wars, the Black Grail was responsible for the greatest plague in human history, infecting tens of millions. Victims of the Black Grail are left in horrific states, flesh liquefied, organs rotting, yet still alive, still suffering, their minds intact within their decomposing forms. Those who succumb do not find rest. Instead, they rise again, twisted into the unwilling bearers of Beelzebub's will, or driven to spread the infection further. The cult of the Black Grail is not an organization in the conventional sense, but rather an unholy convergence of the damned. Forming grotesque warbands of the infected, they would gather in worship of Beelzebub, constructing horrific altars of bone and bile, where they offer trophies stolen from their victims, both objects of material value and dismembered remains of the slain. These twisted congregations mock the prayers of the faithful, reveling in their own suffering as they spread their master's corruption. Several major events in Trench Crusade history have seen the Black Grail unleash devastation upon the world. The first recorded outbreak of the Black Grail, in 1346, tens of millions fell to its influence, turning entire kingdoms into rotting wastelands. Those infected did not merely die, they became a part of the endless plague, their suffering an eternal mockery of life itself. One of the greatest victories against Beelzebub's influence came under the living Saint Joan of Arc, who led a desperate campaign to purge the Black Grail from Europe. Though the faithful succeeded in driving it back, remnants of the cult still linger, waiting for the right moment to rise again. In the grim darkness of modern warfare, the Black Grail remains an ever-present threat. Its resurgence is often tied to Beelzebub's shifting power in hell, and outbreaks of the Grail continue to plague battlefields. Special forces from New Antioch and the Free State of Prussia have developed flamethrowers fueled by holy anointed oil in an attempt to combat it, but no true cure exists. The Black Grail represents more than just a plague. It is Beelzebub's unrelenting war against existence itself. The faithful understand that this is a battle that can never be fully won, only delayed, and throughout history, heroes like Joan of Arc have beaten back the tide, but the cult never truly dies. It merely waits, festering in the shadows, biding its time until the world is weak enough to succumb to it once more. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming horror, hope remains. The Church continues to seek a means of purging the Black Grail for good, and warriors of the faithful stand ever vigilant against its spread. The war between heaven and hell rages on, and as long as the faithful endure, Beelzebub's victory will never be absolute. The cult of the Black Grail is one of the most terrifying aspects of Trench Crusade's grim universe. It is not merely a disease, but a weaponized force of demonic will, designed to corrupt, subjugate, and ultimately destroy all life. Its warbands, its plague knights, and its heralds serve as relentless agents of decay, ever striving to reshape the world into Beelzebub's putrid image. The battle against the Black Grail is eternal, but as long as warriors stand against the tide, there remains hope that its influence can be kept at bay, if not eradicated entirely. The forces of the infected appear in many grotesque forms, changing and deforming in horrific and hellish ways. The Lord of Flies does not depend on mortal servants to wage his war upon creation. Instead, his corruption will spread through the enigmatic power of the Black Grail, a defiled font from which an unending tide of vermin and disease pours forth. The followers of Beelzebub wield weapons imbued with the Black Grail's blight, where even the slightest wound seals a victim's fate. Those unfortunate enough to be struck are condemned to a horrific transformation, enslaved by the King of Decay as ravenous parasites consume them from within. The power of the Black Grail is indiscriminate. At times, multiple beings succumb to its corruption, their bodies merging into a loathsome, festering mass. From this amalgamation rises a new servant of Beelzebub, a shambling horror driven to spread the infection further. Foremost among these abominations are the Hounds of the Black Grail, twisted fusions of human, canine, and insect. They serve as the vanguard of the cult of the Black Grail, using their powerful, loping strides to overrun fortified positions, their grotesque mouthparts liquefying the organs of their victims, leaving them paralyzed and defenseless, perfect prey for the heralds of Beelzebub. The gifts of the Black Grail exact a terrible price. Those who partake in its unholy blessings begin a slow, irreversible descent into corruption, their flesh and souls consumed by the will of the Lord of the Flies. Only a rare few among the chosen possess the resilience to withstand its influence without succumbing entirely. Most, however, are doomed to become Grail thralls, hollowed out husks, their bodies festering with supernatural plagues, and their minds shattered beneath the weight of their afflictions. Once enslaved by the Black Grail, these wretched beings are stripped of autonomy, reduced to little more than puppets of the Black Grail's nobles. For eternity, they endure the torment of ceaseless infection, their ruined bodies teeming with parasitic horrors that gnaw at their insides and fester in their rotting flesh. Though they may still resemble the beings they once were, all traces of self have been erased, leaving behind only suffering and servitude. Grail thralls manifest in two distinct forms, each moulded by grotesque forces of the Black Grail. The first, true Grail thralls, have been stripped of sensation, their bodies warped into nearly unfeeling vessels of rot and decay. Pain holds no power over them, and their nerves are deadened, leaving them relentless in battle. Heedless of wounds that would fell a mortal warrior, they march in tireless ranks, unflinching and obedient, driven forward by the decrees of their masters. Fly thralls, by contrast, remain far more mobile, but at an even greater cost. These wretches are puppeteered by gargantuan hellflies. The monstrous insects have driven their needle-like proboscises deep into the victim's central nervous system. Bound to their host, these vile creatures seize complete control, overriding the victim's mind and turning them into swift, frenzied instruments of the Black Grail's will. Though fly thralls retain a grotesque semblance of agility, they experience pain in full measure. Every laceration, every wound, every burning infection searing through their flesh. Yet they remain bound, trapped in their own bodies, unable to resist the monstrous will that compels them. Both forms of thralls are but disposable tools in the grand design of the Lord of Flies. They are not warriors, nor soldiers of ambition, but vessels of decay, spreading filth and ruin wherever they are unleashed. Their suffering is unending, their servitude eternal. Such is the fate of those who succumb to the Black Grail. Amalgams are towering, shambling masses of flesh, an obscene fusion of countless bodies, fallen enemy warriors, beasts, vermin, and any other unfortunate creatures that have succumbed to the agonizing blessing of the Black Grail. These grotesque colossi lurch across the battlefield like walking mountains of diseased, rotting meat, their bloated, pulsating form stitched together by the unholy will of Beelzebub. Their many flailing limbs still clutching the rusted weapons once held in life, lash out in chaotic violence, driven by a madness that knows neither pain nor mercy. Anything caught in their path is crushed into a pulpy ruin beneath their gargantuan, elephantine feet, lost in a tide of fetid decay. Amalgams are among the greatest manifestation of Beelzebub's dark ingenuity, grotesque triumphs of his relentless will to mutilate creation and reshape it in his own blasphemous image. To the Lord of Flies, no tool is too wretched, no material too sullied, and no corpse too broken to be repurposed. In his hands, all things, living or dead, become instruments of his grand design. Gluttony is the sovereign domain of Beelzebub, and in the amalgam, this deadly sin takes terrible form. It is not merely an insatiable hunger for flesh, though the amalgam's appetite is known to have no limits. It is the embodiment of unchecked access, of ceaseless cravings, endless consumptions, and boundless indulgence. More flesh, more power, more bodies to tear apart and assimilate. This is the will that drives the amalgam, a mindless butchery born from the bottomless hunger of the Lord of Flies. Just as Beelzebub's own greed blinds him to the suffering of others, so too does the amalgam lurch forward, devouring all in its path. Amalgams do not rise naturally. They are birthed in a place where suffering festers, where death lingers in putrid heaps, mass graves, the catacomb trenches where the wounded rot in the dark, carnal houses overflowing with the dead and dying, and the bloodied remnants of field hospitals where severed limbs pile high. They even emerge from places of cowardice, dugouts, bunkers, and hidden corners where the craven huddle in vain, hoping to escape the wrath of the Lord of Flies. But the Black Grail is ever hungry, and wherever flesh is discarded, wherever bodies are left to fester, it gathers the remnants and fuses them into something far worse than death. Once enough flesh and bone has been claimed, the amalgam lurches to its feet, a mountainous abomination, towering over mere mortals, its gargantuan body a shifting, seething mass of corpses and sinew. It does not walk so much as shamble, its ponderous bulk barely contained by its own decaying form. And despite their grotesque instability, amalgams serve the warbands of the Black Grail with unwavering purpose. Wherever they march, they leave behind only ruin, crushing bodies underfoot, sweeping aside warriors with massive flailing limbs, consuming the remains to fuel their ever-growing bulk. They are the ultimate mockery of life, a festering testament to Beelzebub's unchecked greed and his unholy dominion over all things discarded, broken, and left to rot. Such is the fate of those who fall before the Lord of Flies. Their deaths are not an end. but a beginning, another scrap of meat to be swallowed by the Amalgam's insatiable maw. The Black Grail's pollution is not merely a curse, it is a gift, an extension of Beelzebub's unholy dominion, and to the Lord of Flies, corruption is not simply destruction, but a transformation, a desecration of flesh and soul alike, carried upon the wings of the insects bred by his own blasphemous hand, in the festering depths of the seventh layer of hell. This pestilence spreads like a tidal wave. No act of mercy can save them, no antidote can cleanse them of their suffering. Against such outbreaks, entire regiments of New Antioch and the Free States of Prussia stand vigilant, their sole purpose to contain and cleanse these living abominations, before they can spread any further. Clad in sealed armour, they wield flamethrower tanks infused with consecrated anointed oil, turning the searing flames of purification upon the polluted remnants of the Black Grail's victims. Yet, even in death, the cursed sludge does not fall silent. It howls and screams as it burns, shrieking in agony to the heavens that long abandoned it. But there are those who suffer a fate worse than dissolution. Some are chosen for a darker purpose, their bodies claimed for a far more grotesque transformation. Bestowed with the grim honour of merging with hellflies, they are reshaped into hideous winged abominations, the heralds of Beelzebub, the wretched squires and scouts of the Order of the Fly. Their bloated, insectoid forms take to the air, their twisted wings beating with the sound that shatters courage and breaks the minds of those who hear it. And yet, the vestiges of their former human selves remain trapped within, fully aware of their torment, their decayed flesh repurposed as mere fuel for the monstrous beings that they have become. As their warped husks fight for the glory of hell, their minds scream in silent horror, prisoners within their bodies. Heralds serve as the vanguard of any Black Grail assault, their deafening drone heralding doom before their grotesque forms even come into view. Their mere presence shatters the resolve of defenders, sapping their will and leaving them vulnerable to the horrors that follow. Armed with weapons scavenged from the battlefield, their blades and bullets are not merely tainted, but alive. Wriggling, parasitic worms burrow through the very steel of their weapons, infesting every round, every blade, every fragment of shrapnel. Each diseased bullet carries a horrific sentience of its own, twisting in the air to seek out even the smallest chink in the armour, burrowing deep into the flesh before liquefying the organs of its victims from within. There is no salvation from such wounds, only an agonizing demise. To hear the wings of a herald is to know that death is near. Such is the fate of all who stand against the Lord of the Flies. The Lord of Tumors is a grotesque and malevolent entity. This abomination epitomizes decay, disease, and corruption, serving as a harbinger of pestilence and despair on the battlefield. The Lord of Tumors is a manifestation of the corrupting influence of the Black Grail. This entity embodies the perverse blessings of the Black Grail, spreading its malignant influence across the war-torn landscape. The Lord of Tumors is depicted as a massive, deformed figure, its body riddled with grotesque growths and oozing sores, symbolizing the physical embodiment of unchecked disease and decay. On the battlefield, the presence of the Lord of Tumors is both a strategic and psychological weapon. Its grotesque appearance and overwhelming aura of corruption demoralizes even the most stalwart soldiers. The diseases it spreads can decimate enemy ranks, turning healthy warriors into corpses or mindless thralls under its control. This combination of physical might and supernatural corruption makes the Lord of Tumors a formidable adversary. When the tide of the Black Grail sweeps across the land, many mortals cry out in desperation, their voices raw with fear and hopelessness. They beg Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies, to spare them, offering their souls in exchange for mercy. But such prayers are wasted breath. The Prince of Gehenna has no love for creation, no care for those who seek out to bargain with it. His will is absolute, his hatred boundless. He does not grant mercy, only corruption. He does not accept worship, only servitude. His only desire is to see the world twisted into grotesque reflections of his own design. A writhing, plague-ridden wasteland, infested with vermin and sickness, devoid of the divine order it once held. Yet, among the terrified masses, there exists those rare few who do not beg for salvation, but instead yearn for annihilation. These individuals do not cry out in fear, they whisper in reverence. They do not flee from the tide of filth, they step into it willingly. They see the world not as something to be saved, but as something to be defiled, and to them the triumph of Beelzebub is not a curse, but a blessing. Among such wretches, the most depraved and bloodthirsty are chosen for a dark, terrible purpose. These are the chosen of the Black Grail, inducted to the unholy order of the Fly, as plague knights, champions of Beelzebub's will and executioners of his grand design. When the Black Grail arrives, in its all-consuming wave of pestilence and ruin, the plague knights do not resist, nor do they fall like common mortals. They do not rot away into mindless husks like the Grail thralls, or become bloated abominations like the heralds. Instead, they are transformed, remade into something more, something worse. Their flesh withers, taking a corpse-like resemblance, stretched thin over sinew and exposed bone. They are neither alive nor fully dead, their bodies infused with the unholy essence of Beelzebub. Yet, unlike the mindless servants of the Black Grail, they retain their intelligence, their cunning, and a dim bit of lingering memory of their past lives. This makes them invaluable, not just as warriors, but as agents of the Lord of Flies, infiltrating isolated farmsteads and forgotten villages, leading the corruption to places that might otherwise have escaped its grasp. For the Plague Knights, corruption is a path to ascension. The more they spread the pestilence, the more they warp the living beyond recognition. The higher they rise within the ranks of the Order. Beelzebub does not reward loyalty, only effectiveness, and those who serve him best are given greater power, greater insights into his divine affliction. Among their numbers, 12 stand out above all others, the legendary figures of disease and death, the mightiest of the Plague Knights. They are Beelzebub's mockery of the Church's holy Paladins, dark champions whose deeds are whispered in terrifying reverence by those who know of them. These 12 do not walk the mortal world freely, for they dwell within Ekron, the accursed city of Beelzebub, a metropolis of filth and torment so vile that even the most powerful of heretic lords dare not approach its decaying gates. The 12 are not prisoners of Ekron. When their master's will reaches their ears, carried by the deafening buzz of countless hellflies, they emerge from their festering sanctuary. They do not march, they do not charge. They drift like spectres of pestilence, unseen until it is too late. They strike with the precision of master executioners, their blades rotting the flesh before even drawing blood. Where they tread, cities fall, not to fire and steel, but to sickness and despair, to the slow, agonizing death of a world drowning in disease. They are not warriors, nor priests, nor monsters. They are the architects of ruin, and through them Beelzebub's vision shall be made manifest. Only the strongest, most fanatical human devotees can endure the blessings of the Black Grail, and to drink from its foul waters is to surrender flesh, mind, and soul to Beelzebub's grand design. Few survive the ordeal intact, and even fewer remain something recognizable as human. Those unworthy are reduced to husks, twisted beyond all reason, into Grail thralls who are consumed entirely, their essence repurposed to further the will of the Lord of Flies. But there are exceptions, rare individuals whose bodies do not simply enjoy the Black Grail's corruption, but embrace it. They are transformed, not as mindless beasts or writhing abomination, but as a warrior. Their flesh remains largely intact, yet subtly warped, pulsing with unnatural vitality. The Black Grail does not take their strength, it refines it, Their wounds fester, but never truly kill them. Their bones crack and mend, and their nerves deaden to pain, allowing them to fight long after their bodies should have failed. These chosen few are inducted into the ranks of the Corpse Guard, the elite bodyguards of the infernal nobility, sworn to defend the lords and masters of the Black Grail. Each member of the Corpse Guard has already faced death, and in doing so has transcended weaknesses of ordinary men. To kill one is an ordeal, for their wounds close as quickly as they are made, and even when struck down, the Black Grail calls them back to their feet. They fight with the patience of those who do not fear death, for they have already embraced it. But the Corpse Guard do not serve simply as warriors. They are aspirants, vying for a greater fate. To be among their ranks is to stand on the precipice of something far more terrible and glorious, the ascension to infernal nobility. For those who serve with distinction, proving their worth through centuries of unrelenting war, there awaits a reward far beyond mere power or prestige. Their devotion and resilience marks them as worthy of a higher calling, transcending into something no longer bound by flesh alone. When the time comes, the Black Grail bestows upon them the ultimate blessing, the shedding of their last vestiges of mortality. They are not simply bodyguards, they are the chosen, standing on the threshold of damnation, eager to take the final step. For in the service of Beelzebub, true power comes not through conquest alone, but through surrender, through willingly embracing the rotten plague of the Black Grail. Of all the horrors spawned by the Black Grail, none compare to the rise of a hegemon. Its toxic miasma, its swarming iron locusts, and its half-living warbands are terrifying, but they are nothing next to the monstrous culmination of Beelzebub's dark design. A hegemon is not just a creature, it is the ultimate expression of his corruption, a towering blasphemy forged from suffering and decay, his vengeance against Yahweh made manifest. The birth of a hegemon requires a great gathering of the Black Grail's cursed legions. Thralls, amalgams, and heralds must converge in vast numbers, their wretched bodies riddled with corruption. In twisted reverence, they chant hymns of disease and decay, their ruined voices praising Beelzebub's terrible beauty. But their words alone are not enough. Countless innocents must be sacrificed in the process. Their bodies are torn apart, forming a grand and unholy mandala that scars the land itself. As the ritual unfolds, the very fabric of reality begins to rot. The air grows thick, clotted with invisible filth, choking all who breathe it. Swarms of flies take unnatural shapes, forming shifting symbols of malignant intelligence, and above, the sky festers, blackening, as an immense abscess swells in the heavens. From this grotesque wound, in reality, diseased blood rains down, soaking the defiled earth. The chanting intensifies as the gathered abominations drag themselves into the heart of the ritual, bearing the still living remnants of their sacrifices with them. Then comes the final stage, a gruesome metamorphosis. The assembled creatures collapse into one another, their flesh merging into a writhing, shapeless mass. Bones splinter and reform, limbs contort into impossible angles, and faces stretch and dissolve into the quivering bulk. A colossal mound of rotting, pulsating flesh is all that remains. If this grotesque entity is not burned away within 13 days, it will complete its transformation, and rising as a hegemon of the Black Grail. When it emerges, it stands as a monstrous, armoured titan. Wreathed in the endless swarms of flies, this nightmare is more than a mere beast of war. It possesses the cunning of a fallen angel, imbued with the foul wisdom of Beelzebub himself. Its corruption seeps beyond the battlefield, infecting even the dead, ensuring that no soul can escape its master's grasp. Against mortal armies, it is an unstoppable force, capable of annihilating entire divisions and reducing mighty war machines to rusted wreckage. Only twice in history have these horrors risen, The first was felled by Paladin Engelir, who perished in the battle, and the second was defeated by the Saint Joan of Arc during the Corpse Wars of 1429. Now, the Church and the warriors of New Antioch are relentless in their resolve. They know the cost of failure, they know what is at stake, and they will not allow another hegemon to walk the earth again. In the year of our Lord, 1429, after 66 years of relentless war, the mighty hegemon of Beelzebub, Yersinia Rex, was finally vanquished, and the decisive Battle of Valence, led by the living saint, Joan d'Arc, and the combined forces of the Church, they shattered the armies of the Black Grail, marking the end of the dreaded Corpse Wars and purging much of mainland Europa of Beelzebub's taint. The Lord of Flies was consumed with rage at this catastrophic loss. So much of the Black Grail's power had been poured into the fallen hegemon and his legions that Beelzebub's fury turned against his own failed servants. In his wrath, he cursed his wayward progeny, casting them from the Order of the Fly and condemning them to an eternity of wandering the earth in sorrow, mourning their lost champion until the end of time. Yet, not all who served the Black Grail in the Corpse Wars suffered this fate. From the accursed city of Ekron, where Beelzebub's power had remained strongest since the Elder Days, came his highest priests, those who had acted as messengers and heralds to the hegemon. These dark advisors, sent by the Lord of Flies himself, had guided the war effort, plotting the conquest of the Church's heartlands. Unlike the military leaders of the Black Grail, these figures belonged to the cult's religious hierarchy and were bound directly to their infernal master. With the war lost, these high-ranking priests and their personal guards broke through the faithful's encirclement and fled south. As though victorious, the exhausted armies of France, the Holy Roman Empire, and the Crown of England chose not to pursue the remnants of the enemy, believing them to be broken beyond recovery. This would prove to be a grave mistake. Rather than seeking refuge in heretical lands, the fleeing servants of Beelzebub struck at the city of Avignon. Its fortifications had been prepared for just such an attack, but the defences crumbled, not from force, but from treachery. In the dead of night, hidden cultists of the Lord of Flies betrayed their fellow citizens, throwing open the gates to the invaders. Leading them was none other than the city's own cardinal, a traitor who had secretly sworn himself to the Black Grail. These forces became known as the Missionaries of the Black Grail, and since then, the Black Grail has never been truly wiped from the face of Europe. Beelzebub's disease still spreads through its servants of the Missionaries, or through secret cults, biding time before they strike. So, shall you join him, the spreader of disease, the Lord of Lies himself, Beelzebub? Shall you spread the plague to all those who reject his will? This is the cult of the Black Grail. These 6 factions are the key players in the Great War of Trench Crusade. It is up to you who you side with, whether it be the Principality of New Antioch as a soldier, or whether you are led by visions to become a Trench Pilgrim. If you have fallen to sin in the Heretic Legion, or are in the cult of the Black Grail, spreading Beelzebub's creation, you must choose your warband and wage war against your enemies. So, that has been an insane compilation. I've had the idea to do that for quite a while, since the start of making these Trench Crusade videos, really. I knew each faction would need a deeper dive, and I was not going to be able to handle my first Trench Crusade video being 3.5 hours long. So I decided to release them in weekly installments. And then I had eventually planned to do this. Now, it took a bit longer than expected because I got sidetracked with ideas on projects and videos that I've made, like the Northern Gate and the soon-to-Prussian Free State, which is coming. But I just felt, I know for a fact I love these type of videos, hours-long compilations where you can just turn them on and go off and do whatever you want and just listen without having to worry to change your videos. So I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you're not subscribed, welcome to the channel. Please do. It is helpful if we maybe catch up with a certain other Trench Crusade YouTuber who has overtaken me. Not throwing any names out there. And if you enjoyed the video, if more of this sort of stuff is wanted, I will be happy to do it again eventually when I have enough content to make a new fresh one, because I don't want to make compilations that just reuse the same stuff over and over again. So if you would like more maybe themed compilations, whenever I get more videos out on each topic, just tell me and I'll be happy to do them. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.